Chapter 161 Awakening of Divine Armor. Chen Shang, wielding his azure dragon slaughtering devil blade, jumped up. He stared coldly at the onlookers and firmly stated, "My, Chen Zhang's, head is right here. If you got the balls, try and come take it." Everyone looked on at Chen Shang. They were all silent and could not help but feel chills run down their spine. Currently, it was very difficult for all of them to even breathe under Chen Zhang's intense murderous pressure. Even a martial artist in the third level of the true martial realm had been killed by Chen Shang. Furthermore, nothing remained of him but a few rags, who would dare act. In front of them, Chen Shang had completely defeated two martial artists in the true martial realm. As long as nothing was wrong with their brains, they wouldn't be stupid enough to come out and fight. Chen Shang cultivates that slaughtering heart, and followed with his current mood, made his body truly spew out the slaughter chi. "Don't dare to come. Didn't all of you previously come here to look for me, couldn't wait to personally kill me, now how did all of you, one by one became cowards?" Chen Shang coldly glanced at these onlookers, sneered and said, "From now on, as long as someone want to take my head, just like this crystal stone, I will definitely make them join it in the form of powdered flesh and bones." While speaking, Chen Shang held a crystal stone in his hand and crushed it into powder. Once again, he frightened everyone. Cutting a crystal stone in half was easy, however, crushing it into powder with one's bare hands was extremely difficult. "I want to take your head. Try to come and crush me to death." A handsome man walked out and separated himself from the crowd of onlookers. He was actually Liao Xiaoyun. "Liao Xiaoyun, last time you turned tail and ran away like a dog. Now you dare to come out and threaten my people. If I was you, I would rather find a hole to hide myself until death comes." A gentle sound floated over, however it was carrying a very thick amount of slaughter chi, drenching everyone in cold sweat. As chills were running down everyone's spine, a bald man with white eyebrows and a beard suddenly appeared in front of Chen Shang, sending everyone into an extreme shock. That day in the extreme marital sect, Liao Xiaoyun was simultaneously attacked by two great elders of extreme martial sect. However, he was still able to escape with his life. This matter could be considered as something he could hold pride in, yet he was ridiculed instead. Wu Kaming of the extreme martial sect had just arrived, one of the peak experts in the Nirvana realm. Seeing this kind bald man, many could not help but be shocked in their hearts. The crowd quickly dispersed. This sort of battle between people of this level would overturn seas and rivers. TLN. The last word of sentence was asterisk in the Chinese counterpart. "We tried to fill the gap. If you think it doesn't fit the location, please pardon us." "Elder Wu, this disciple will first take his leave." Chen Shang mischievously smiled. He then disappeared, using the fastest speed possible to leave. Standing on top the high hill, Lu Menjie stared at the sprinting Chen Shang heading towards the mountain forest. She smiled and said, "This brat's blade was truly an eye-opener. I definitely want to borrow it and take a look. Teacher, is it very formidable?" Shui Shenxiang held Lu Menjie's hand and asked with some surprise. "It is very formidable. There are very fine veins engraved on that blade, fully covering the entire blade body. Each intricate, and yet extremely profound." Lu Menjie nodded her head. He still cannot unleash the true power of that blade, otherwise he would have definitely been far more powerful. This blade can allow his power to increase multiple times. Otherwise, he would absolutely not be able to defeat a martial artist in the third level of the true martial realm. Chen Shang arrived at the top of Black Tortoise Mountain, and quickly entered a cave. Long Shui had already told him that Black Tortoise Mountain currently had many martial artists of extremely high strength around it. There were even many Nirvana realm martial artists. Just a moment ago, Chen Shang was being observed by a good few powerful divine sense. Just when the entire Black Tortoise Mountain had been shrouded in an intensive atmosphere, the entire mountainside suddenly started fiercely shaking. These severe tremors lead to the ground near Black Tortoise Mountain began heaving up and down like the ocean waves. Whether it was the tall trees or the huge mountain peaks, all was destroyed in an instant. In the blink of an eye, everything around Black Tortoise Mountain had been flattened. Many of the martial artists who had leapt into the sky looked on at the frightening scene unfolding before them, their hearts still held lingering fear. The legendary Black Tortoise Adamantile armor had awakened. However, the entrance of the mysterious realm had still not opened. "Now we can head towards the center of Black Tortoise Mountain," Long Shui shouted in excitement. Chen Shang promised her that as long as she could make him enter the Black Tortoise mysterious realm in advance, he would give her a lot of true elemental dans and building foundation dans. Chen Shang quickly ran further inside the cave, and Long Shui too was similarly excited. When there was only a single person in the mysterious realm, wouldn't the majority of the treasures inside belong solely to that individual? We've arrived. Chen Shang had just arrived at the center of a mountainside. The place turned out to be empty, but the entire place was dark. Chen Shang ignited flame in his palm, illuminating the area. There was no one else here, because when the entrance of the mysterious realm opened, there would be an outburst of a very violent power. Anyone staying near that was just seeking death. Lu Menjie and Shui Shenxian had seen Chen Shang enter the cave. If the entrance of the mysterious realm opened, anyone staying inside that cave would be affected by that burst of power. Elder Kai, stay and protect Shenxian, Lu Menjie said in a light tone. An old woman holding crutches instantly appeared beside Shui Shenxian. Menjie girl, rest assured. That Elder Kai kindly smiled and touched Shui Shenxian's soft hairs. Shui Shenxian obviously knew that her teacher was going to find Chen Shang, and pull him out in order to avoid being affected by the power from the opening of the mysterious realm. Rumor had it, that even if it was Nirvana realm martial artists who were close, they too would be seriously injured. If their strength was weak, they might even vanish in a puff of smoke. Teacher, be careful, Shui Shenxian lightly nibbled her lips and said with worry. Rest assured, your teacher is a whole lot stronger than me. Elder Kai laughed kindly, caressing Shui Shenxian's hair. Lu Menjie slightly smiled and nodded her head. This little husband of yours is truly a bundle of troubles, even making me worried about him. The instant Lu Menjie finished speaking, she turned into a white silhouette, and vanished in the blink of an eye. Chen Shang was waiting for Long Shui to use her Dragon Clan's ancient secret method to open a space passage and enter the Black Tortoise realm. In the middle of the mountainside of Black Tortoise Mountain was usually very dark. However, now, one could see many patterns exuding while light along its walls. This was the power released by Long Shui, composed of the spirit veins which formed an array. Chen Shang was engrossed in looking at that abstruse and complex pattern of spirit veins. He would love to engrave it in his mind, but just trying to remember lead to intense headaches. Not only were there a lot of spirit veins, they were also very dense. Chen Shang estimated there were at least a few 100,000 spirit veins, and each and every one of them was completely unique. They each winded together with other spirit veins to combine into an array. While the winding of each one was somewhat similar, the degree of each bend was different. However, it held a distinct power precisely because of this. Don't try to remember. If I didn't have my hereditary memories, I would be dead, but still will not able learn this bloody thing. Long Shui was also having a painful headache. If not for the getting so much to eat, she would not even bother to use so much of her brain. Well, it's the first time after coming out of my shell that I'm spending so much power, you better thank me. Long Shui said in a tender tone. From her voice it was evident she was tired. Chen Shang also didn't say anything, and took out a few true elemental dans for her to eat. Chen Shang was overlooking this sparkling round array on the mountainside. This dazzling array, constituted of hundreds of thousands of spirit veins, was now slowly begin to merge. Once it was entirely fused together, an entrance to the Black Tortoise mysterious realm would be opened. Suddenly, Chen Shang sensed someone coming towards him. Moreover, in a very quick speed. This was certainly not a good thing. He didn't think someone would actually rush here just to seek death. A girl wearing white tights and a white muslin on her face stood in front of Chen Shang. He could not help but exclaim, Sister Menjie. Lu Menjie was also very surprised from seeing the round array in the middle of mountainside exuding white light, and those countless spirit veins. Her pretty eyebrows were knit together, while her pretty eyes were filled with shock and ecstasy. What happened? She didn't even finish the sentence, before a fierce aura broke out from that round array, followed by a burst of strong suction. In just the blink of an eye, Chen Shang and Lu Menjie were sucked inside. Chapter 162, Black Tortoise Mysterious Realm. Chapter 162, Black Tortoise Mysterious Realm. Moments ago, the surroundings was white, then, it suddenly turned dark. Chen Shang only felt he was leaning against a tender and soft body. He was immediately surprised. With the use of the faint light, he saw his own body pressing against a graceful figure wearing white tights. That peerless elegance, that mature and elegant bearing of an empress, wasn't this Lu Menjie? The white muslin on Lu Menjie's face had already fallen. At this point, she opened her eyes, looking at Chen Shang in resentment. With a slight angry tone, little rascal, still not standing up. Quickly come down. Chen Shang was shocked in his heart. He rolled his powerless body over Lu Menjie's body. A moment ago, His body was pressed on Lu Menger's bosom, those two soft and wonderful things. This made Lu Menger very shy. What happened? Lu Menger asked in a low voice. At this time, Lu Menger found no power left in her body, and Chen Shang too felt this. Sister Menger, why did you come? Chen Shang asked back. Your little wife was too worried about you, she let me come to find you. Who knew you were doing such mysterious things here? Lu Menger somehow twisted her head, looked at Chen Shang lying beside her. At this point, Chen Shang and her were so close, both of them could feel each other's breath, and once again, her face couldn't help but have a tint of redness. Since she was born, it was the first time she had a dubious relationship with a man. Sniffing the delicate fragrance from Lu Menger's body, Chen Zhang's mind was swayed. He couldn't help but think about the sensation when he was pressing on Lu Menger's body. Lu Menger was the empress of the divine weapon Heavenly Empire. She was a strong martial artist reigning on one region, and furthermore, she was also the teacher of his fiancé. This made him secretly curse himself. He actually had some evil thoughts about her. Humph. Lu Menger let out a light snort as she looked at Chen Shang, who had a dazed expression, as if thinking of something evil. If not for the fact that Chen Shang was her disciple's man, once her strength was restored, she would surely kill such a frivolous man. Sister Menger, this is my confidential secret. I temporarily cannot say anything to you. Furthermore, you too must keep it a secret. You can't speak of this to anyone. I came because of a major mission, exactly for obtaining the Black Tortoise Adamantine armor. As long as this thing have one good master, the extreme martial sect don't need face such a crisis every once in 10,000 years. Chen Shang regained his senses and quickly explained. Fortunately, Chen Shang had encountered many stunning women, otherwise, some wicked thoughts would have definitely arisen in his heart. He also calmed his heart down as he tried to operate true qi to condition his body. Why have we lost our strength? Lu Menger looked at Chen Shang with a frown. Her pair of bright and beautiful eyes were filled with majesty. She was very wary of Chen Shang. Sister Menger, are you afraid of me? Chen Shang smiled and said, you are Shen Xian's teacher. To tell you the truth, although you can easily make a man mad, it is still not enough to make me do outrageous things. Lu Menger sighed in relief, chuckled and said, when I saw you first, I instantly knew you were a man who is just all talk but no action. I don't believe you are not tempted by me. Hey, thinking of you and being tempted to you are two different ideas. As long as one is a man, looking at a beautiful woman will make them think of her, but they would rarely be tempted. Chen Shang said with a nasty laughter. Only he could dare to say such suicidal words in front of this woman. This courage was practiced out from staying with Elder Dan for a long period of time. He would often take liberties with Elder Dan. This time, in his opinion, there was not much difference between Lu Menger and Elder Dan. Smelly brat, don't let me have the opportunity to teach you a lesson. I truly don't understand why you have such courage. You actually dare to speak such suicidal words to me. Are you truly not afraid that I will kill you? Lu Menger's eyebrows twitched, her eyes filled with an imposing aura. At this time, Chen Shang slowly and suddenly sat up. With a nasty smile, he gradually looked at the heaving up and down towering chest of Lu Menger. Currently, she was wearing tights, perfectly sketching out her figure, very arousing and coveting. You, Lu Menger bit her red lips and glared at Chen Shang. Sister Menger, am I a very bad man in your impression? Chen Shang stretched his lazy waist. He also didn't know why he could recover quickly as compared to Lu Menger, while he was also unable to operate his true qi. Originally you were good, but now you are very bad. I've already heard there are some unclear things between you and Wu Qianchen. Moreover, you also seem to have ulterior motives for that stepsister of yours, Leng Yulin. Lu Menger coldly snorted and said. Hey, if it was Shenxian, she would not think so. Chen Shang laughed and said, why do you care so much regarding my matters? Shenxian, she is too stupid, she is being deceived by you. Lu Menger said with a light snort, I'm worried for Shenxian, she found a man who will break her heart. Chen Shang, while rubbing both of his hands, seriously said, Sister Menger, if I do something to you now and killed you afterwards, no one will know, you truly are a beautiful woman. Lu Menger was speechless. Chen Shang could truly do as such. After it's done, it truly didn't matter, he might just be straightforward. Thinking of this point, Lu Menger's tender body slightly quivered. Sister Menger, if you don't know me, please don't jump to any conclusions regarding me. Otherwise, don't blame for turning against a friend. Chen Shang coldly said. Out of nowhere, a slaughter chi burst out from his body. following his mood swings, the slaughtering heart made him like a slaughtering god. Lu Menger looked at those eyes of his, laden with murderous intention. In her heart, she was surprised for a moment. Chen Shang actually didn't have any evil thoughts for her, on the contrary, he just had the desire to kill. And all of this was because she misunderstood him, slandered him, moreover, also included Shui Shenxian. From the beginning, I hold you in high regards, you are a senior, you are also good to Shui Shenxian, furthermore, you were also very friendly towards me. However, if you once again dare to slander me as such, I absolutely will not be polite. Chen Shang stood up. He already had yin and yang divine veins, cultivated the Tai Chi subduing dragon exercise. He was destined to become a man who would dare to look down upon everything. This was what made his arrogance different from the rest. Looking at Chen Shang, Lu Menger was speechless. Just a moment ago, she was just making a joke about getting molested by a man, and in the blink of an eye, she became the enemy, just because she slandered him. I don't want Shenxian to think any nonsensical things. You cannot say any nonsense in front of Shenxian. Chen Shang hunkered down, and spoke in a gloomy and ice-cold voice, his whole body exuding an oppressing arrogant aura and slaughter chi. Lu Menger heaved a sigh. She was indeed wrong. Chen Shang was not so bad as she had imagined. It was evident from his previous performance. This made her feel shocked. I'm sorry, Lu Menger said in a low voice. From now on, I don't need to worry about Shenxian anymore. She will understand you, that's why, I don't have to worry about you. Chen Shang was very gallant. It wasn't impossible for any woman to get attracted to him. However, as far as she knew, inside the extreme martial sect, it was just Wu Qianchen who had good relations with Chen Shang. This mysterious realm is changing, and whoever comes here will not be able to use true qi. You have to be careful. Chen Zhang spoke in a dignified manner. Unable to use true qi. Wouldn't it mean that all the martial artists would lose their power? Lu Menger was very shocked in her heart. The majestic light in those beautiful eyes had already disappeared and was replaced by a deep sense of fear. She proudly stood at the apex of the martial community of the mortal world for many years, and it was exactly because of her powerful true qi. But now that she could not use her true qi, she was no different from the ordinary people, which made it difficult for her to accept, and made her fall in an abyss of fear. TLN. I'm sure no one had thought of hard and soft way. Chapter 163. Enchantment of Spirit Veins. Chapter 163. Enchantment of Spirit Veins. More than half an hour passed, and only now was Lu Menger able to move. Although she could not utilize her true qi, she was still able to see the true qi in her dantian. It was being suppressed by a powerful and bizarre power, preventing it from being mobilized. At this point, the empress-like majesty had disappeared from Lu Menger. With a weird expression in her eyes, she looked at Chen Shang and asked softly, under these circumstances, do you still want to go and search for the black tortoise adamantine armor? Why can you recover faster than me? She knew that Chen Zhang's body was very tough, but no matter how strong it was, it couldn't possibly be compared with hers. After all, she had been standing on the apex of the entire Chenwu mainland for many years now. Chen Shang slightly smiled, as if all those unpleasant things that had occurred previously hadn't occurred. Hey, your body may possibly be much stronger than me, however, my body is refined using special means. Chen Shang had tempered his body in the immortal devil pool and also taken the dragon blood dan for quenching his body. All of this had allowed his body to gain a near miraculous fast recovery ability. When both of them were sucked inside the black tortoise mysterious realm, all of their strength had been drained, which is why they felt so exhausted. However, with Chen Zhang's special body characteristics, he was able to recover extremely quickly. Lu Menger stood up. At this moment, she felt that her whole body was very weak and she was just barely able to walk. Meanwhile Chen Shang was full of vim and vigor. If Chen Shang wanted to do something bad to her right now, she simply did not have the strength to resist. Thinking of this, she once again began to secretly worry in her heart. However, it soon became evident to her that Chen Shang held no interest towards her whatsoever. She was very impressed at Chen Zhang's mental fortitude. At the same time, she was also a little disappointed. With her temperament and enchanting aura, she actually could not tempt a young and vigorous little rascal. Eat! Chen Shang threw a jade box at her. Inside, there were many quenching body dans. I want to go and find the black tortoise adamantine armor, and the journey may be dangerous. Do you want to follow me? Although our strength is millions of li apart, now it is hard to say. Humph, don't be so proud. If we're competing in our physical prowess, I would absolutely not lose to you. In the entire Chenwu mainland, only a few people could be compared with me. Lu Menjie declared with a soft snort, I promised Shenxian that I won't allow the slightest mishap to happen to you. Of course I'll follow you. Chen Shang mischievously smiled and once again returned to that ruffian-like appearance from before. Just a moment ago, weren't you worried that I might strip off all your clothes? After you realized you can't use your true qi, you were so scared, you looked like you had seen a ghost. Lu Menjie just let out a soft snort. She realized at this moment, treating Chen Shang gently was simply a thankless thing. Of course, she knew that Chen Shang was just joking around with her. Chen Shang sternly said, Sister Menjie, let me say this first. That black tortoise adamantine armor is mine. At the time we meet it, you cannot seize it. If you can, just take it away. That thing is not so easy to obtain. Otherwise, Huang Jishan would have already taken it to the extreme martial sect long ago. Lu Menjie said it like she didn't even care. Chen Shang looked around, he found that they had fallen in a wasteland full of various sizes of stones. The sky was fully covered in dark clouds, blocking out the light. Currently, it was basically nighttime in the Black Tortoise mysterious realm. You've come here before? Chen Shang asked. I've come here just once before. At that time, I was just a true martial realm martial artist. However, it was devoid of this strange power that is suppressing true qi. Lu Menjie lightly bit on the quenching body dan. Even her act of eating the dan was quite pleasing to look. On the side, Chen Shang was brimming with a happy smile. Humph, if you weren't Shenxian's man, I would have definitely made you look good. You cannot push your luck, my patience is limited. Lu Menjie was suddenly somewhat angry. She was the honorable empress of the Divine Weapon Heavenly Empire, in charge of the gigantic empire. However, today, she was actually molested by a 20-year-old little rascal, and not just once or twice. What's more, she was even threatened by him. She had not felt this wrong for a very long time. Sister Menjie, do you hate me now? Chen Shang asked. He crouched down with his hand checking the ground, he didn't know which way they should go. HMPH, you already know the answer to that, why are you asking? Originally you left an impression on me of being good, if a bit naughty. However, now, humph, humph. Lu Menjie looked all around, releasing her divine sense and becoming vigilant. She was also looking for a direction to go. Alas, it seems my plan fell through. Chen Shang helplessly sighed. At this time, he heard the faint sound of flowing water, probably from a river stream. Earlier, Huang Jishan had told him to go downstream in order to find the black tortoise adamantine armor. What plan? Lu Menjie curiously asked. She too heard the sound of running water. Chen Shang sighed, because you hate me, you will not teach me how to refine equipment. I really wanted to learn. Lu Menjie let out a low snort, and said, I won't teach you. Aren't you already learning alchemy, why do you still want to learn how to refine equipment? Chen Shang truly wanted to ask advice from this empress of the refiners community, however, now it seems that there was no hope. I know how to refine various kinds of dans, although, only a few among the countless different dans. I found aside from the relatively common ones, there are those that are either less useful or have no apparent usage. I would like to learn some information on refinement procedure of equipment to see if I can combine it with alchemy and maybe create a new type of dan. Chen Shang said as he started walking towards the sound of distant flowing water. Lu Menjie also closely followed him, she too intended to walk towards that location. For this idea of Chen Zhang's, Lu Menjie just thought it was wishful thinking. She ridiculously said, don't even think about it. That is simply impossible. Although both alchemy and refining requires the use of fire, the process is very different. Alchemist cannot necessarily refine equipment and vice versa. For example, Elder Dan can only refine poor-level spirit weapons while I too can only refine some low-grade dans. Chen Shang just shook his head and smiled, that's okay, just wait for me to refine the first envisioned dan. Then I'll personally deliver it in your hands, thrashing your face. Lu Menjie casually said, you're always welcome to try. But at that time I might have already ascended to the heavenly realm. Lu Menjie was looking down on him, Chen Shang suddenly felt somewhat unhappy. He stopped in his tracks and took out a sheet, on which there were many messy spirit veins drawn. However, on a closer look, this seemingly chaotic mess of spirit veins were very orderly. It was as if Allah had crisscrossed them together. If one looked into it even more carefully, divine sense would fall into it, and closely follow those spirit veins. Lu Menjie just took a glance and was instantly captivated. She could not extricate herself, her eyebrows were tightly knit, as she constantly reflected and followed those spirit veins. She wanted to see what effects these spirit veins had. She wanted to know the law of this diagram that had been composed of these many spirit veins. Lu Menjie was completely engrossed with those spirit veins, meanwhile Chen Xiang was proudly smiling. He immediately retracted that sheet, and continued to move forward. This made Lu Menjie angrily stamp her lotus-like foot and softly snort. After Lu Menjie saw the space door that had been established by Long Shui, Lu Menjie knew that Chen Xiang had many secrets. Although those spirit veins made many people feel a painful headache, she really liked these sort of things. In her opinion, the spirit vein Chen Xiang had just showed her was the most peculiar and complex set of spirit veins she had ever encountered. According to her estimates, it may be a high-grade spirit vein, and if used properly it could release a very fearsome power. Chapter 164, Otherworldly Civilization. Chapter 164 Otherworldly Civilization. TLN. Sorry, in last chapter there was a mistake in a line. He stopped in his tracks and took out a sheet, drawing many messy spirit veins. He stopped in his tracks and took out a sheet, on which there were many messy spirit veins drawn. In my defense, I was very sick. As for the delay, as previously I already told you, I was sick, and my situation took turn for worse, and getting connection in a hospital is even more harder to get. There was too much interference, and also I was advised for bed rest. I would have translated offline, but a 104 was nothing I could scoff so easily. Anyway, enjoy the chapter. Before, the spirit veins Chen Xiang had shown were excerpt from the Refiner's Scroll. Previously, Su Meiyao and Bai Yuyu too had enjoyed the complexness and very profoundness of the Refiner's Scroll. Although they weren't proficient in it, they knew these spirit veins were very rare and very formidable spirit veins. And at last, after Chen Xiang had encountered Long Shui, he had once again confirmed this fact. At this moment, he got to see the hanging appetite of Lu Menjie. He was even more convinced that these spirit veins were indeed marvelous, and besides, he still had a lot more. Chen Xiang strode towards that flowing water sound, and Lu Menjie, who kept on asking Chen Xiang about those spirit veins, followed closely behind him. However, he just laughed off Lu Menjie's questions and didn't pay much attention to them, making Lu Menjie grind her teeth in anger. Finally they arrived at the river shore. It was 100 jong wide river, clear and cold. Chen Xiang used the river water washed his face. "Did you draw those spirit veins?" Lu Menjie once again asked. Her face was filled with resentment. Along the way, she had asked the very same question to Chen Xiang repeatedly. However, Chen Xiang never answered and directly ignored her. This kind of attitude towards her was the first time she had experienced it. Chen Xiang smiled, finally answering her question. "Yes." "Who taught you?" Lu Menjie hastily asked. She was eagerly waiting to interrogate Chen Xiang and get her answers. "I picked up a book. Inside this book, there are many of that kind of spirit veins, and there are also a variety of ways to refine weapons. It's just that I've been fiddling with it on my own." Chen Xiang, after thinking through, decided to tell this to Lu Menjie. Lu Menjie was astonished. Her face was full of ecstasy, and yet she immediately pouted, looking upset, because she knew that taking advantage of Chen Xiang was not so easy. Before, she had flatly refused Chen Zhang's request, so she also hadn't expected that. At this time, she had to change her tune. "Originally, I wanted to ask you to teach me. Alas, forget it. Who told you to have so much prejudice against me?" Chen Xiang said with a look of disappointment, then walked along the downstream. Lu Menjie followed after behind him. After considering for a long time, she nibbled her lips and spoke. "Okay, I have completely misunderstood you before. But you know, I do not really hate you. Who told you to molest me?" At this point, Lu Menjie was just like her name, like a little girl. This change also had its own charm which caught Chen Xiang in surprise. "I've called you Sister Menjie. I was certainly joking with you before." Chen Xiang mischievously smiled and said, "Elder Dan originally also used to hate me. However, now, hey, isn't she now someone who I could lead around by the nose?" "Humph, here we go again. You mean to say, you will lead me by the nose?" Lu Menjie let out a soft snort and spoke as she stared at Chen Xiang. "Of course not. Sister Menjie is Shenxian's teacher, so of course, I want to please you. That way, you will be good to Shenxian." Chen Xiang smiled and said, "All the unpleasant things happened prior, let's consider those as something that didn't happen. By making this elegant, peerless, empress chase him as such, Chen Shang was quite satisfied. He certainly didn't want to have bad relations with Lu Menger, and now, he also felt being together with Lu Menger was not bad, at least he get to see an additional cute and amusing side of her. This was perhaps something that was very difficult to see. Chen Shang took out his 10 sheets of excerpt spirit veins, which were also the first 10 sheets of the refiner's scroll. According to the book, these were the most basic of the refiner's scroll. As long as one could entirely understand these 10 spirit veins, one could start learning the aforementioned refining weapon technique in the refiner's scroll. Lu Menger took those 10 sheets as she immediately halted her footsteps. She aptly looked at where she stood. Her mature beautiful face was filled with ecstasy. A drunken blush emerged on her face, which made her seem even more beautiful and enchanting. Indeed, she was very charming. On the side, Chen Shang rubbed his chin, appreciating that peerless face, secretly praising in his heart. He could not wait to extend his hand and stroke that breathtaking face. Sister Menger, don't look now, take your time to look at it when you return to the divine weapon Heavenly Empire. I entered this Black Tortoise mysterious realm in advance for obtaining that Black Tortoise adamantine armor. We have no time to delay. Chen Shang urged. Lu Menger didn't hear his words. Her pretty eyes were glued to that sheet of spirit veins in her hands, continuously blinking. Her brain was quickly calculating these spirit veins, looking as if she was doing some very complex thinking. Seeing Lu Menger so serious, Chen Shang could not help but extend his hand and stroke her cheeks. His hand felt very good, as if he was stroking a creamy beautiful jade. With just one touch, Chen Shang was addicted to it. He too didn't know from where he got the courage. He actually dared to rub even further. Just as Chen Shang was spellbound in touching, Lu Menger surprisingly grabbed hold of his wrist and coldly asked, "What are you doing?" Chen Shang was surprised as he instantly regained his senses. He forcibly smiled and said, "Sister Menger, there was some dirt on your face. I was helping you wipe it." "Right, did you discover anything when you were looking?" "I've also examined it for long, but didn't understand these spirit veins." When he said, "These spirit veins," Lu Menger's eyes were pleasantly surprised as she said in excitement, "These spirit veins are very complex, all of them are high-grade spirit veins. These are not from this mortal martial world, I think they came from another mortal world. You should know that, under the heavens, our mortal martial world is not the only one. There are also many other mortal worlds that are much more civilized than ours. However, it is very difficult to travel from one world to another world, and if you can get something from their world, it is extremely good." Chen Shang was also taken aback. If he could get alchemy techniques from another world, this might greatly elevate his alchemy. But of course, with regards to the recipe and the herbs, it would be harder. "Sister Menger, let's hurry. I have to hurry and find the Black Tortoise adamantine armor," Chen Shang replied. Lu Menger stored those 10 sheets as if they were treasure. She also knew it would be impossible for her to get the refiner's scroll from Chen Shang. However, she could get these spirit veins. It was enough for her to fiddle around for some time. Lu Menger touched her cheek. She softly snorted and said, "You spunk, you even dared to cheaply take advantage of me. Before, the situation was unavoidable, so it was okay, but now you actually, hum. Chen Shang chuckled and said, "Sister Menger, in the future, whatever progress you make, you better tell me. These 10 sheets of spirit veins are the most basic. These should be learned before one can start learning the refiner's knowledge." Lu Menger had also reached her bottleneck in weapon refining, and now that she got these spirit veins, she felt that it was equal to treasure. Regarding the matter of Chen Shang touching her face before, she chose to not pursue the matter. It was deemed as giving Chen Shang a little benefit, and besides, in her heart, she didn't truly abhor Chen Shang, she just felt that he was a little bad. Wait for me to teach you these spirit veins. Afterwards, I'll teach you weapon refining too. While in this period of time, you should get familiar with these spirit veins," Lu Menger said while nodding her head, her voice becoming a lot more warm. "Sister Menger, not in a million could you tell Shenxian about the things happened here, otherwise, that little girl would definitely despise me," Chen Shang said with a bitter smile. "Humph, you can be rest assured. If I say it to her, it would also have an impact on me." Lu Menger remembered what happened before. She couldn't help but get angry again. "You know the way." "Maybe," Chen Shang nodded his head. "What do you mean?" Lu Menger slightly knitted her beautiful eyebrows. "Let's go." Chen Shang curled his lips. He himself was also not sure whether the words of his insane teacher were true or not. Chapter 165, Heavenly Dark Mouse. Chapter 165 Heavenly Dark Mouse. Although Lu Menjie followed behind Chen Shang, she was walking and stopping intermittently rather absent-mindedly. It seemed like she was thinking of something in a trance-like state. With just one look, one could tell she was thinking about those spirit veins. Sister Menjie, you are very good right now, like a gentle sister. Chen Shang smiled and said. I'm only good to you and Shenxian. For anyone else, I would not be. I'm a dean, as well as the Empress of the Divine Weapon Heavenly Empire. Not to mention I need strength to deter many people, I must have the ability to scare them off. Lu Menjie spoke until there. She had a look of arrogance and her whole body was releasing a majestic aura, it was as if she turned into a different person. Although the Divine Weapon Heavenly Empire has branch stores in each and every city in the Qingwu mainland, there are many sects trying to swallow the Divine Weapon Heavenly Empire. Not only is the Divine Weapon Heavenly Empire itself wealthy, its citizens are also wealth. This is the main specialty of the Divine Heavenly Empire and that's how it's different from your extreme martial province. Only the sects and families are stronger in the extreme martial province, sometimes, the very rich or the desolately poor die, and in many border areas countless civilians are indiscriminately slaughtered. However, this would never happen in the Divine Weapon Heavenly Empire. As long as any citizen is being bullied, I will immediately take action. Lu Menjie's tone became heroic and that majestic aura became even more domineering, making Chen Shang secretly admire her. Chen Shang had already heard of the formidability of the Divine Weapon Heavenly Empire. Their gallantry was a common custom and every citizen was proud of their status as a member of the Divine Weapon Heavenly Empire. There were no malfeasance committed by influential figures, thus, the common citizens were not bullied by anyone. They had a very fair and equitable justice system, sometimes even Lu Menjie could not do things without proper authorization. However, if the Divine Weapon Heavenly Empire were attacked by a Devil Path sect or any sect with ill intentions, this happy state would sink into hell. Lu Menjie held great responsibility because she was the strongest martial artist in the entire Divine Weapon Heavenly Empire, and thus, she was its guardian. When facing others, she would always have an oppressive atmosphere and emit an air of powerful influence, making people fear her. However, there was another side of her. She was warm and gentle like water, even somewhat innocent and lovely. Wait, there's something ahead. Lu Menjie suddenly grabbed Chen Zhang's arm, her gaze was glued on the dark bush of grass in front of them as she pulled Chen Xian back. Chen Shang didn't sense anything, and Long Shui also didn't warn him of something. However, when he saw Lu Menjie being so cautious, he knew there was definitely something in front of them. It was the norm for all the mysterious realms to have many powerful and fearsome demon beasts inside it. Sometimes, there would be various other types of strange and powerful existences inside along with a variety of other dangers. It's a demon beast. Specifically, it's a very famous demon beast of the mysterious realms, called the Heavenly Dark Mouse, a very large mouse. Lu Menjie said in a heavy tone. She opened her arms to guard Chen Shang, and warily looked all around. Chen Shang realized he was being protected by a woman, and he was secretly unhappy in his heart. He took out the Azure Dragon Slaughtering Devil Blade. He could not currently pour true qi into it, but it was still very heavy. However, Chen Shang didn't feel a thing while he was holding it, in fact, it was rather comfortable. Sister Menjie, don't tell me you are afraid of mice. Chen Shang smiled and asked. I'm not afraid, I just seem to hate them. Lu Menjie said in a low voice. She had not expected Chen Shang to smile at this moment, because the heavenly dark mice were very strong, their strength was comparable to that of someone in the third level of the true martial realm. Don't you know about the heavenly dark mice? Lu Menjie asked. I've heard of them, but what's there to fear? Chen Shang mischievously smiled and teased, Sister Menjie, you're the Empress of the Divine Weapon Heavenly Empire. How can you be afraid of something like this? Lu Menjie pursed her lips in anger, she no longer paid any attention to Chen Shang. She found out Chen Shang simply could not be counted as a normal person. In such a situation, he still dared to laugh. Of course, if her true qi was not sealed, she would not be afraid of anything in this mortal world. However, right now, she could only rely on her own physical strength which was rather limited. Chen Shang saw a black silhouette suddenly leaping in the distance, he immediately exclaimed, incoming. He took a step, separating himself from Lu Menjie's protection. He strode in a strange pace, like a snake on the ground winding forward very quickly. His speed was very fast, it looked like he was dragging his long shadow along with him, extremely similar to a snake's long body. In the blink of an eye, that dragging silhouette from Chen Shang collided with that incoming black figure. Lu Menjie just saw Chen Shang quickly brandishing his blade, cutting that black silhouette into two pieces, which was followed by a jet of blood. "Good fella, it's truly bull-sized," Chen Shang exclaimed as he looked at the giant rat on the ground. Lu Menjie quickly rushed over and gently asked, "Are you all right?" As the blood dripping from the broadsword in Chen Zhang's hand came to her notice, Lu Menjie was even more surprised, because the material of this blade was even better than she had imagined. "I'm all right. Is this the heavenly dark mouse?" "Too weak," Chen Shang mischievously laughed and said. "Weak." Lu Menjie secretly despised him. With such a powerful blade, even if he ran into a demon beast with scaled armor, it would still be cut into two pieces, not to mention this mouse, this kind of beast. "Can you still use your true qi?" Lu Menjie doubtfully asked. She looked at Chen Zhang's appearance, it didn't seem like he couldn't use true qi. To her surprise, he could still maintain fearsome strength and speed. "Can't." Chen Shang shook his head. The pace he used previously was the one when he didn't have the spiritual vein. It was a type of martial technique that he painfully practiced, it was just that now he only used his body to cast it, and was able to reach such a level. "Your blade." Lu Menjie just finished speaking till here, her complexion suddenly changed, grabbing Chen Shang before quickly retreating 10 steps, only to see a beautiful white long spear like snow suddenly appear in her hands. To Chen Zhang's surprise, Lu Menjie actually used the spear, and it seemed very formidable. "White jade dragon bone, top-grade dragon bone," Long Shui cried in a low voice. Chen Shang hadn't heard of anything called white jade dragon bone, however, it appeared to be very formidable. "Is it white jade dragon bone?" Chen Shang glanced at that pretty long spear. "Brat, your eyesight is not bad, now is not the time to speak nonsense, look." Lu Menjie, using the long spear, pointed the ground in front. The ground was slowly being raised, and then it fiercely burst open, just to see countless adult bull-sized heavenly dark mice jumping out from the ground. Surprisingly, there were at least a few hundred. This is the formidability of the heavenly dark mice, it is precisely their numbers. Lu Menjie just spoke till here before she saw a flock of mice madly rushing out from that hole. It looked like a spring fountain that was emerging from the ground. Seeing this, Chen Zhang's eyes were transfixed as a chill ran down his spine. They were constantly growing in numbers, it was already more than 10,000. During childhood, this kind of large mice would eat flesh till adolescence, and for a set period of time during this time they are able to absorb spirit chi until they become grade 3 demon beasts, and their strength becomes comparable to the third level of the true martial realm. Lu Menjie grabbed Chen Shang while gradually retreating, her visage was inexplicably dignified, in her heart, she was very worried and afraid. If hundreds of thousands of heavenly dark mice pounced on them, they simply could not escape. "Teacher, you have harmed me, on this road, we have actually encountered so many mice." Chen Shang secretly scolded, because what he did was according to his teacher, to walk along the water side. "Waterway." Chen Shang fiercely quivered, looking at the river stream, an idea suddenly popped out in his mind. "Sister Menjie, are you carrying something that could float on water? If not, we will jump into the water," Chen Shang said. "I have." Lu Menjie took out a small boat from the storage ring on her finger, before throwing it into the river. After which, both of them quickly jumped into the boat. At the same time, those heavenly dark mice were like an avalanche, enshrouding everything in their path as they also leapt into the air. Chapter 166, Waterway. Chapter 166 Waterway. Chen Shang and Lu Menjie were on the boat, each slashing away with their sharp divine weapon at those countless pouncing heavenly dark mice. At the same time, Lu Menjie used her divine sense to push the boat, leaving the shore. By now, the boat was covered in the blood of the heavenly dark mice and there was even some blood dripping from Chen Zhang's body. However, there was not a single bloodstain on those white tights of Lu Menjie. Previously, Chen Shang had also noticed this strange phenomena. It seemed that Lu Menjie's tights had a peculiar ability that could repulse away the tides of dripping blood. The small boat was now far away from the shore, and soon arrived at the center of the river stream, leaving those heavenly dark mice screaming on the faraway shore. They didn't dare to step in the river that had been filled with the floating corpses of many heavenly dark mice. If these could be taken out, Chen Shang thought he would be able to exchange them for tons of crystal stones. As he used his broadsword to row that small boat to fish out those floating corpses, he realized that his style of doing things had some uncanny resemblance with Zhu Rong's after spending a lot of time together. "Quickly wash your body." "Ah." Upon seeing those heavenly dark mice were not chasing, Lu Menjie sighed in relief. "Right, also let me take a look at your blade." No, that blade is very heavy, if I take it out now, it could sink the boat. When Chen Shang came aboard the boat, he had already exchanged his Azure Dragon slaughtering devil blade with a level 3 spirit weapon. At this moment, Chen Shang leapt into the water, the river cleanly stripped off the blood on him, washing his entire body. Afterwards, Chen Shang asked Lu Menger to turn around before climbing up and changing his clothes. Realizing that there was a naked man behind her, Lu Menger's face became very hot. She became very shy. She realized that in the brief period of time with Chen Shang, he had made her experience a lot of things which she had never experienced in the past thousands of years in her life. TLN. No love life in her tens of thousands of years of her life. PFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFfffff. However, in her heart, she was somewhat worried. She tightly gripped that white bone-long spear in her hands as she stood on the bow of the boat. Chen Shang spread his hands, and helplessly said, I don't know either, I was only told by someone that traveling on the riverway is safe. Sister Menger, that bone spear of yours is very beautiful, what is it called? When you were killing the mice, there was not a single trace of blood on it. Also, when you were wielding this spear, you looked truly beautiful, very pleasing to the eye. Chen Shang praised. What he said was entirely true. When he was using his blade before to kill those heavenly divine mice, he was not capable of doing so with such a majestic style. Kiss of the Jade Dragon. Lu Menger holding the long spear majestically stood at the bow. Watching the river surface with a cold look, she dismissively said, when I obtained this, it was already damaged. It took me a good 3,000 years to restore it. Its rank is very high, it's not a mere mortal weapon. Her tone was filled with pride because she had been able to recover this level of weapon, it was something she could be very proud of. TLN. Kiss of the Jade Dragon, Yulong Ji Wen. The name itself was very beautiful, however, Chen Shang knew, if that so-called kiss arrived, it definitely would not be so beautiful. What is that blade of yours called? Lu Menger asked. Azure Dragon Slaughtering Devil Blade. Its speciality is that when true qi is poured into it, the weight is increased and it would become even more heavy. However, the wielder would not feel a single bit of it. Hey, formidable, right? Chen Shang laughed and said. Very formidable. Lu Menger nodded her head in response. In her heart, she was secretly astonished. Suddenly, a billowing thunderous roar came from the shore. Chen Shang and Lu Menger immediately turned their heads towards the sound. Suddenly a chill ran down their spines and both their faces turned pale. They had a panic-stricken look because there was a dense flock of various demon beasts. Looking from afar, it was extremely shocking. It was as if ants had densely covered the shore. Chen Shang gulped. It appears that a great bloody slaughter will take place. After I obtain the black tortoise armor, I will not allow Shenxian to come here. It's too dangerous. Yes, being unable to use true qi would truly make things very dangerous. In just 10,000 years' time, so many demon beasts have actually been born. However, why is there some power sealing our true qi? Lu Menger could not help but suck in a mouthful of cold air. If at this time, they were still on the shore, the odds would definitely be against them. There is not even a single monster Dan among the 30 heavenly dark mice we killed. Chen Shang said with disappointment. There are very few demon beasts with monster Dans. For each corpse, you should be able to get at least 10,000 crystal stones. Lu Menger said. Regarding this small amount of money, she didn't care about it at all. The sky gradually turned brighter, however it was still mostly cloudy. The demon beasts on both shores gradually decreased throughout the night and both Chen Shang and Lu Menger were always on the tenterhooks while guarding against those demon beasts. They were worried that these demon beasts would suddenly jump over. However, these beasts seemed to be very scared of the water and didn't come over. 10 days passed, the countless demon beasts on both shores gradually made Chen Shang and Lu Menger numb. The spirit qi in the black tortoise mysterious realm was many times that of the spirit qi outside, so logically it should not be that surprising for it to have bred so many demon beasts. Besides, it was also devoid of any human interference for 10,000 years. There is no way ahead. Lu Menger suddenly spoke. Chen Shang saw a stone mountain in front of the river and the water seemed to be able to penetrate that stone mountain. Chen Shang looked all around. He saw a road full of mud, there was also some water on it. However, a stench was also permeating from this road. Over there, there should be a waterway. Chen Shang pointed at that muddy river. Although Lu Menjie was somewhat reluctant to go there, it was already proven that what Chen Shang had said earlier was true, walking on the waterway was very safe. She took out 2 oars, and with Chen Shang began to row the small boat. I'm rowing a boat with Sister Menjie, it's truly a great joy in life, ha ha. Chen Shang happily laughed. Can't you a little bit serious? Lu Menjie coldly said. Since last night, she had employed a straight face, there was not a single moment she let up. On the other hand, Chen Shang was happy and giggling. Sister Menjie, you could also enjoy this. You have this kind of thing in your storage ring, you must have played often with Shenxian. Chen Shang laughed and said. Humph, I was taught a lot by that little girl, she has tons of tricks under her sleeve. Lu Menjie retorted. When she was together with Shenxian, Lu Menjie also felt rather happy. Hey, it was I who taught her all those ways to play around. Chen Shang laughed and said. Thinking of his childhood days spent together with Shui Shenxian, his face was also brimming with happiness. As they entered the muddy path, rowing became even more difficult, but the strength of both Chen Shang and Lu Menjie was enough. In addition, Chen Shang was also carrying a lot of supplementary dans, which would allow them to recover their strength. Look! Chen Shang immediately shouted in shock. At this time, they saw that both sides of the mud stream was suddenly filled with dense figures. On a closer look, those figures were huge centipedes, spiders, scorpions, toads and various kinds of poisonous beasts. Looking at them would make anyone's scalp tingle, and their whole body drenched in cold sweat. Especially with centipedes of this size, the bull or sheep-sized toads, scorpions, and spiders. All of them looked very frightening, besides most of them were very poisonous creatures. Lu Menjie frowned, her whole face was filled with disgust. If she could use her true qi, it was highly likely that both shores would be raised with fire. Sister Menjie, how is the relationship between you and Elder Dan? Chen Shang asked in order to distract them from the horrendous sight in front of them. Those poisonous creatures on both sides were extremely dense, there were too many to even count. However, not a single one of them dared to enter the mud, which reassured Lu Menjie a lot. She would often use dans to exchange for some of my spirit weapons. Our relationship is also good, however, even I have never seen her true appearance. Regarding this matter, Lu Menjie was also very curious. In fact, it was a matter that had already troubled her for thousands of years. What about the dean of the Danxiang Taoyuan? Have you ever come in contact with her? Chen Shang once again asked. No, I've never seen her. However, a maidservant of hers would generally come and discuss some things with me. Danxiang Taoyuan is also completely managed by this maidservant. Lu Menjie replied. She knew what idea Chen Shang was having, because she too believed that there was a relation between the dean of the Danxiang Taoyuan and Elder Dan. After all, both of them were very major yet mysterious figures. As the maidservant you spoke of Hua Shangyu. Chen Shang was shocked in his heart. He hadn't expected Hua Shangyu to be in possession of that much authority. Surprisingly, she actually managed the entire Danxiang Taoyuan. You actually know so many women. Lu Menjie said with a light snort. Suddenly, the poisonous beasts on both sides spread out, which was soon followed by a loud roar along with severe trembling. It was as if the entire Black Tortoise mysterious realm was shaking. That roar also sounded very hoarse, it carried a kind of vicissitudes and sadness along with it. Chapter 167, Realm Within Realm. Chapter 167 Realm Within Realm. This mysterious realm entrance is about to open. We have to hurry and acquire the Black Tortoise Adamental armor. Chen Shang was finally feeling some tension. Lu Menjie nodded her head, and with Chen Shang sped up, it made the small boat move forward faster. The Azure Dragon Slaughtering Devil Blade, the Black Tortoise Adamental armor, both of them have name of the 2 beasts among the 4 divine beasts, could there be some kind of relevance? Lu Menjie pondered and said. Chen Shang mischievously smiled. Sister Menjie, I have heard you also have a vermilion bird named Divine Weapon, could you help me open my outlook? Hearing Chen Zhang's words, Lu Menjie's complexion changed, and her entire body shivered. With furrowed eyebrows, she aptly watched Chen Shang and coldly asked, who did you hear it from? This is supposed to be highly confidential, there are only 3 people who know about it, me, my father and mother. And, my parents have already ascended to a higher realm. Chen Shang learned about this from Su Meiyao, and Su Meiyao had also learned about this from her own master. Su Meiyao and Bai Yuyu's master had practiced the ruthless devil skill, and had already courted his own destruction. And, the 2 girls had not told Chen Shang about the origin of their master. This It was totally outside Chen Zhang's expectation that this matter of the vermilion bird divine weapon would be so mysterious. He quickly thought of an excuse as he said, "A senior told me, you should know that the achievements of mine in regards of strength and alchemy are not just due to me alone fumbling around, it was all passed down by a senior, however, I'm not aware of that senior's origin." Lu Menjie nodded her head. She found Chen Zhang's words to be more reasonable. In this huge mortal world, it was not impossible to find hidden dragon and crouching tigers. At this time, she came to a realization that Chen Zhang's secrets were increasing as she came to know more of him. "I indeed have the thing related to the vermilion bird, it's just that I don't know how to use it. Besides, currently, it is in a sealed state, and it is impossible for me to control it with my mind. I've already bled on it, however, it was still not useful." "Do you know anything regarding this matter?" Lu Menjie frankly replied. She had been trying to figure out this divine weapon of unknown origins, however, even both her parents didn't know anything about it. Chen Shang, while considering, asked about it with Su Meiyao, asked whether or not he could tell Lu Menjie about the divine weapons of the four symbols. From the interactions between Chen Shang and Lu Menjie during this period, both Su Meiyao and Bai Yuyu knew that Lu Menjie was a nice person, and she indeed had been good to Chen Shang and Shui Shenxian. Otherwise, with Chen Shang taking so much advantage of the other party, taking such liberties with her, he would have already been blasted to smithereens. "You can tell her. However, make sure she would keep it as a secret, not passing to any other person, or else it would be detrimental to you," Su Meiyao exhorted. Chen Shang slowly took in a deep breath and said, "The azure dragon slaughtering devil blade, the black tortoise adamantile armor, and that thing related to the vermilion bird of yours, and there is also a similar thing of the white tiger. Together, these four are called the divine weapons of the four symbols, and all of them are divine weapons." Divine weapon. Lu Menjie's whole body jolted, her body was slightly shaking, she took a long deep breath and exclaimed, "No wonder that blade of yours is so powerful, originally, it was a divine weapon from heaven above. How come I cannot use it?" Lu Menjie somewhat disappointedly said, "I have done everything that I can, however, I was still unable to understand what damn thing I had obtained." "Can I take a look?" Chen Shang asked. Without apparent reason, Lu Menjie's cheeks suddenly turned slightly red, and she didn't speak a word. She pondered for quite a while before speaking. "When you have obtained the black tortoise adamantile armor, then we can talk again. I want to observe how you are going to reign the divine weapon of the four symbols." In order to reign the divine weapons of the four symbols, one is needed to cultivate the divine exercise of the four symbols, and the divine exercise of the four symbols was a very powerful martial exercise. Although it was created from the Tai Chi subduing dragon exercise, it was comparable with the Tai Chi subduing dragon exercise. Chen Shang speculated it must have been created by some very powerful figure, because it was also related to the mysterious divine weapons of the four symbols, and from the locations of the divine weapons of the four symbols, it was pretty clear that the divine weapons of the four symbols were refined by some legendary figure who had actually used the mysterious realms to hide these treasures. The black tortoise mysterious realm would occasionally produce some severe tremor which had already been continued for 20 days in a row. However, Lu Menjie and Chen Shang had never heard of that roar of a seemingly giant ancient beast again. Originally, those intermittent tremors had already turned into continuous fierce shakes. Chen Shang and Lu Menjie had already spent a whole month inside the black tortoise mysterious realm. They had also left the muddy river, and entered a huge dark river. Afterwards, they had entered a giant canyon. Along the way, they had encountered many demon beasts and various poisonous creatures, however, they were still heading downstream, and had never been attacked. Now, they were in a small winding river. At the end of this small river, there was a mountain, and on the mountainside, there was a cave. From afar, one could see that this cave was exuding a blue aura. At this time, Long Shui said in a dignified tone, "The black tortoise mysterious realm's entrance is open. There is a very strong space power and time fluctuations. The time flow outside and inside is very different. From these time fluctuations, I found that these 30 days inside here should be equivalent to 3 days outside. 10 times the difference." However, there was nothing unusual inside the mysterious realm, and there was such a huge difference between the normal world and the world of this mysterious realm. Very strong space fluctuations. It seems that the entrance is open. I hope Shenxian had not entered. I think because of the seal of the true Qi, many people would choose not to enter. Lu Menjie said with some concern. Chen Shang and Lu Menjie accelerated the rowing of the boat, traversing their way towards that cave exuding an aura. This black tortoise mysterious realm was very huge and very beautiful. It was just that there were many demon beasts, and the true Qi was also sealed. It can be said that it was a very dangerous place, and if someone alone encountered a flock of these demon beasts, that person would certainly be dead. Finally, they entered that cave. The water inside the cave was very warm, giving off a kind of peculiar power. At the end of the cave, there was a white light, like a special entrance. Both Chen Shang and Lu Menjie were slightly excited. They were convinced that in there, the black tortoise adamantine armor must be hidden. Let's go. Be careful. Lu Menjie slightly took a mouthful of air, warily looked at the front and spoke with a serious look. Chen Shang nodded his head while rowing the boat, and soon, that small boat entered that dazzling white light. The black tortoise mysterious realm was accompanied with fierce shaking, while Chen Shang rowed that small boat and crossed that light screen. A fragrance wafted into Chen Zhang's and Lu Menjie's noses, making both of them feel refreshed. What appeared in their front was altogether another world, a water world. However, on the surface of the water, there were a lot of floating grasses. Their top were full of beautiful flowers, and not far in their front, there was an island. Looking at this island from afar, it appeared to be a giant turtle crawling in the sea. How can there be a mysterious realm inside the mysterious realm? What in the end is happening here? Lu Menjie observed her surroundings. In this place, the spirit chi was even more richer compared to the outside. She had never heard of such a case of a realm within a realm. All in all, I think that having a lot of demon beasts outside is very unusual. Chen Shang said. He sped up and rowed the small boat towards that island in front of them. Sister Menjie, what's the situation close to the island? Chen Shang asked. At this point, they did not dare to leave the small boat. During these days, they felt more safer in the water. Although they had once again entered a mysterious realm, their true chi was still sealed. I did not find any danger. In here, we can walk on the land. Lu Menjie lightly jumped as if floating over to the shore. She looked very beautiful and very pleasing to watch. Chen Shang mischievously smiled. He too jumped over to the shore. Lu Menjie received that small boat and walked around the shore. Inside this island, there was a dense forest. Although currently the sky was blue and the clouds were white, accompanied with cool breeze, the forest in front of them still gave off a very dangerous feeling. The island was not very big. Chen Shang and Lu Menjie only spent half an hour, and they have walked on the island shore in circle. They didn't find any footprints of demon beasts or any other danger. At this point, both of them were still unable to use their true chi, which was why they were acting very carefully. Looking at that gloomy dense forest, Chen Zhang and Lu Menjie took a glance at each other, before nodding their heads as they went up. At this moment, that roar which was giving off desolate feeling once again resounded, and it suddenly echoed in their ears. Chapter 168, Adamantine Crocodile Python. Chapter 168 Adamantine Crocodile Python. That roar seemed like as if it was emitted by an ancient giant beast, giving off loneliness and vicissitudes of life, but also full of majesty and intimidation. Both Chen Shang and Lu Menjie halted their footsteps. They were secretly worried that there was a powerful ancient demon beast inside the island. At present, they were unable to use their true chi. If they encountered any powerful demon beast attack, they could only escape. Lu Menjie held her long spear while walking in front with a serious look. She frowned and said, "Be careful, if there is a powerful demon beast that attacks us, you disregard everything else and escape, leave me alone. I have a way to deal with it." Chen Shang didn't answer, he just had a serious countenance while being vigilant of the surroundings. Both of them had already entered inside the forest, and in here, it was very quiet, so quiet that it would make people somewhat fear it. There were lots of weeds in the forest, and they were very difficult to cut. They had very strong life force. The trunks of the trees were also very thick, making Chen Shang somewhat puzzled. The spirit chi here was so rich. Surprisingly, there weren't any odd flowers or strange grasses, all of them were just some weeds. There is some movement. Lu Menjie suddenly stopped, clasped her long spear. She was ready to act at moment's notice. It had already been half an hour since they have entered the forest, and they were about to reach the center. After arriving here, their nerves became even more taut. They became exceptionally vigilant. If there was any sign of trouble, both of them will immediately know. Be careful. Chen Shang and Lu Menjie both quickly shouted at the same time, while simultaneously brandishing their respective weapon in hand. Lu Menjie thrusted her pretty long spear, while Chen Shang had also slashed out his broadsword. Both of them attacked towards the same direction, and both of them had equally attacked with their strongest power. In their opinion, even if it was a relatively powerful spirit beast, it would at least be wounded by the attack of their divine weapons. However, who knew that only sparks would burst out, with a, dang, brittle sound. They only felt their weapon attacking a very hard thing. Chen Shang was very shocked. Although he had not poured true qi in the azure dragon slaughtering devil blade, it was very sharp. With his powerful physical strength, he had brandished this blade. Even if it was a grade 3 spirit beast, it would have been easily sliced into two. Lu Menjie too was similarly surprised. The hard body of many spirit beasts had been pierced by her kiss of the jade dragon. However, now, when she had thrust at that thing, it was unusually strong, which was why a powerful resistance returned back at her, making her beautiful hands numb. Both Chen Shang and Lu Menjie jumped up at the same time. At this time, both of them were able to see what had suddenly attacked them. Surprisingly, it was a creature similar to a giant python. This beast is from the ancient period known as the Adamental crocodile python. Lu Menjie said in a dignified tone. This Adamental crocodile python had a water tank-sized thick body, with a head like a giant crocodile. Its whole body was covered in gray scales one after another, which looked a bit like a crocodile skin. The Adamental crocodile python, with its pair of golden eyes, directly stared at Chen Shang and Lu Menjie. It suddenly opened its jaws, revealing its sharp teeth which looked very intimidating. They were perfectly sure that the mysterious beastly roar from before wasn't emitted by this Adamental crocodile python. After their previous attack, Chen Shang and Lu Menjie knew that their weapons had no effect on this Adamental crocodile python. From high to low, this beast's whole body was as hard as adamental. Although this guy had a very stout body, it was not a little bit slow. At this moment, Chen Shang and Lu Menjie were on high alert. The Adamental crocodile python quickly swung its pointed tail. Its tail was like a sharp spike, thrusting towards Chen Shang. Simultaneously, the Adamental crocodile python rammed its giant head towards Lu Menjie. This Adamental crocodile python unexpectedly used its head and tail at the same time to attack two enemies. Because its whole body was as hard as steel, it didn't fear any attack on its humongous body. At this point, Chen Shang and Lu Menjie could only dodge. If they had their true qi, at present, it would not be so hard for them. However, the scales on the Adamental crocodile python made Lu Menjie extremely excited. This was a very good material for refining equipments. Whether it was used for refining armor or weapon, it was a top-grade material. Truly worthy of an ancient species. Although it's just a grade 5 spirit beast, relying on its innate abilities and indestructible scales, most people would not dare to attack it. Long Shui, this little dragoness, was unexpectedly very excited. This made Chen Shang secretly curse her. At the same time, Su Meiyao and Bai Yuyu were thinking of ways to deal this tough ancient period spirit beast. According to legends, during the ancient period, the spirit qi between heaven and earth was very rich. Strong martial artists were as many as clouds. As for the demon beasts, in order for them to survive and obtain even more powerful strength, the demon beasts wedlock to make up for their own weaknesses. After the birthed cubs reached adolescence, they would become strange species, very tough. Most of the ancient strange beasts were as such. However, with spirit qi getting thinner, and with the appearance of more powerful humans, ancient strange species slowly disappeared. The demon beasts were also badly degraded, and most of them were evolved into some wild animals in the mountains. Does this guy have any weakness? We cannot go on like this, it will consume all of our strength. Chen Shang didn't brandish his blade to chop on that thrusting spear-like tail. Instead, he just dodged it sideways. The Adamental crocodile python was simultaneously attacking using its head and tail. Surprisingly, its body was also quickly slithering, forcing Chen Shang in a steady retreat, destroying many of those huge trees in the process. It was also very difficult for Lu Menjie to cope. Because the Adamental crocodile python was also spraying its stinking venom one after another, the trees which were sprayed melted in blink of an eye. In conclusion, the poison was very strong. Idiot, hit at the 7-inch area below its head. Although this snake is very large, however, its vital point is also similar with the common snakes. Look for that spot and strike. Long Shui tenderly shouted, I thought you knew about it. No wonder you didn't attack. Originally, you didn't even know it. Chen Shang, in his heart, was astonished. He had also thought about it before. However, he felt that it was not tangible to apply for this Adamental crocodile python. It must be known this Adamental crocodile python's whole body was covered in very hard scales. If a blade was slashed on it, only sparks would burst out. Besides, this Adamental crocodile python was very powerful too. Sister Menjie, the 7-inch. Chen Shang shouted. At this point, he could only follow Long Shui's words. Lu Menjie, seeing Chen Shang was already making preparation, realized that there was no time for any pondering. She soon followed in Chen Zhang's attempt. Chen Zhang's feet were sliding, His figure was like a snake, and in a flash, he arrived at the 7-inch location of the adamental crocodile python. He could only grit his teeth as he raised the azure dragon slaughtering devil blade high, and using all of his might, he hacked down like lightning. The 7-inch was just a notion, it refers to the weak point of the snake, although the adamental crocodile python was humongous. As an alchemist, Chen Shang could also determine the so-called 7-inch of this snake. Dang, a brittle sound resounded. Though it sounded the same as before, this blade strike made the adamental crocodile python madly wriggle. Its humongous body in this sierra was tumbling and struggling, raising a lot of trees to the ground. Lu Menger, seeing that it was working, lightly leapt, jumped high into the air, identifying the 7-inch location of the adamental crocodile python. She swooped down and directly plummeted. The sharp spear tip refined using the white jade dragon bone suddenly pierced into the body of the adamental crocodile python. The adamental crocodile python was struggling even more severely. Blood was constantly gushing out from that place where it was pierced. Lu Menger's thrust had succeeded, and she immediately retreated, while Chen Shang swooped over once again and slashed his blade. Although he was not able to cut off the adamental crocodile python, the impact from the strike still made the adamental crocodile python feel sharp pain. In this way, Lu Menger and Chen Shang, one after another, took turns, and continuously attacked the vital point of the adamental crocodile python. In just a brief period of time, that 7-inch place were riddled with many holes. That place had become even more vulnerable. Chen Shang, after exerting all his strength in his blade, was finally able to cut the adamental crocodile python into 2 pieces. *TLN, Chinese saying, a snake's weakness is 7 inches below its head. She Chi Kun hit snake hit 7-inch. Which means if you want to kill a snake, aim for 7 inches below its head. Chapter 169, Divine Armor's Owner. Chapter 169, Divine Armor's Owner. Those 2 pieces of the adamental crocodile python twitched for a while, before it moved no more. Both Chen Shang and Lu Menger sighed in relief. They carefully went over to confirm whether this adamental crocodile python was alive or dead. It was truly difficult. Chen Shang let out a deep long sigh. If he had not cooperated with Lu Menger, it would have been truly difficult for him to kill this beast. He had realized there was still a very large difference between his and Lu Menger's strength, because Lu Menger was able to pierce the body of the adamental crocodile python. However, he was unable to do it. It was all due to Lu Menger piercing many holes at the vital point that he was able to cut the adamental crocodile python. Half and half for each. Lu Menger said. If I want the monster Dan? Chen Shang asked. After all, that was a very valuable thing. I said half for each. The monster Dan can also be cut in half. Lu Menger replied, and then she received the adamental crocodile python into her storage ring. Let me take care of it for now. When we get out of here after you get the black tortoise adamental armor, I'll give you your share. You should know that relying on our current strength, it would be very difficult to cut this beast's corpse. Chen Shang nodded his head. Even if he was able to use true chi, if he wanted to defeat the adamental crocodile python, it would still be very difficult for him. After all, this was an ancient strange beast. Lu Menger contributed the most. The fact that Chen Shang could even get half could be considered very good. In his mind he was secretly happy, he actually obtained so much very cheaply. However, if it was not for his idea, Lu Menger wouldn't know at what time she should strike there. They continued on their way. At this point, they were very close to the heart of the island. They were able to see a hill in the distance. The shape of the hill was exceptionally similar to the shape of the island, very much like the Black Tortoise Mountain, as if it was the smaller version of the Black Tortoise Mountain. At the foot of the hill there was a cave. Seeing this cave, Chen Shang and Lu Menger accelerated their footsteps. They felt the Black Tortoise adamental armor. They stood at the entrance of the cave, before eventually and cautiously went in. After they decided to enter, even if there was a pot of burning oil ahead, they would still continue to walk. Inside the cave, it was extremely dark. Lu Menger was walking in the front, and was doing so very slowly. At almost every step, she would observe her surroundings first before taking another. She was worried there might be traps here. Slowly, half an hour passed. They had finally arrived at the end of the cave where they saw a sarcophagus. Open together. Lu Menger moved to one end of the sarcophagus. Her voice was filled with excitement because the sarcophagus very likely stored a divine weapon. Chen Shang nodded his head. He too was similarly excited. Both of them exerted force simultaneously. As the lip opened, an intense white light broke out, dazzling Chen Zhang's and Lu Menger's eyes. That white light soon disappeared as they both immediately looked to see what was inside the sarcophagus. Surprisingly, they saw a pure crystal case present inside it, which was very similar to the time Chen Shang obtained the Azure Dragon Slaughtering Devil Blade. Inside the crystal case, there was a set of clothes which looked like it was composed of light golden scales. It was a complete set of pant and shirt. Inside the case there was also another small box. Chen Shang reckoned that there was a Dan inside it along with a beast skin. Lu Menjie took a long deep breath. Her pretty face was filled with shock and excitement. You see those fingernail-sized scales? There are countless spirit veins above each of those scales. How was this thing forged in the end? While speaking, she reached out her hands towards the crystal case. However, just as her beautiful hands touched the crystal case, she uttered a tender shout. She fiercely retracted her beautiful hands. There was a painful look on her face. That expression would make anyone feel sorry for her. Are you okay? Chen Shang asked in concern. Lu Menjie nibbled her lips. She gradually shook her head and said, while slightly panting, there is a very strong rejection force from it. If I kept touching it any longer, I'm afraid I might have vanished in a puff of smoke. You be careful, even my level of body was not able to withstand it. Do you have a white jade Dan? Chen Shang nodded his head and hastily took out 2 boxes and handed them over to her. Is it very serious? Fortunately, it's just a little damage to my meridians and muscles. With the white jade Dan, I should be able to recover soon. Lu Menjie's complexion was still somewhat pale. She looked very weak, which made Chen Shang very worried. The black tortoise adamantly armor truly cannot be taken away so casually. As Lu Menjie spoke, her face was giving off an aura of fear. She was sure that even if she could use her true chi, she would still not even dare to touch the crystal case again. This was not the first time Chen Shang had seen this type of crystal case. He also ran across it when he obtained the Azure Dragon Slaughtering Devil Blade. Back then, he had directly grabbed the Azure Dragon Slaughtering Devil Blade. However, now that he saw Lu Menjie's appearance, he too didn't dare to try. Now he was sure that a very powerful figure had intentionally left these divine weapons in the Chenwu mainland. The vermilion bird divine weapon had already been obtained by Lu Menjie's parents. You cultivate the divine exercise of the 4 symbols. I think these should be left by another practitioner that cultivates this martial exercise. However, you currently can't use your true chi, so it is very difficult to determine. Su Meiyao said. She also didn't had any definite ideas or clues. Chen Shang slowly took a deep breath and took out a piece of the hell spirit grass. The instant he placed it inside his mouth, Lu Menjie hurriedly dissuaded, you better not try, it is very dangerous. However, not only had Chen Shang had touched that crystal case, he also took it out from the sarcophagus. Ha ha, the black tortoise adamantine armor is mine. Chen Shang suddenly started madly laughing. With a look of disbelief, Lu Menjie stared dumbfoundedly at Chen Shang. She could not help but once again touch that crystal case. However, she once again uttered a sharp scream. The sharp pain made her feel as if her body was struck by lightning. Blood had already overflowed from the corner of her mouth. Chen Shang hurriedly dropped the crystal case and grabbed Lu Menjie's tender body. He took out a small piece of hell spirit grass and made her swallow it. This made her complexion much better and she soon woke up. Thank you, Lu Menjie said with a light sigh. With a strange look on her face, she glanced at Chen Shang because nothing had happened to him when he touched the box. Yet on the other hand, she had almost lost her life when she touched the crystal case. Chen Shang mischievously laughed, you wasted a little bit of my hell spirit grass. Later on, when you divide the adamantine crocodile python, be sure to give me a little more. Lu Menjie softly snorted and said, humph, really stingy. With all her knowledge and experience, it was very difficult for her to explain this strange phenomena. She could only assume that Chen Shang had way too many secrets. Just a moment ago, she thought she was going to die. If it wasn't for Chen Zhang's timely help of the hell spirit grass, she probably would have died. Chen Shang had saved her life. She had no choice but to acknowledge this fact. The next scene made Lu Menjie clucked her tongue. Chen Shang swung his fist towards that crystal case and fiercely pounded on it, blowing it into smithereens. Afterwards, he picked up those originally sealed set of clothes. Feeling the black tortoise adamantine armor, Chen Zhang's whole body jolted. The black tortoise true chi, in a steady stream from his dantian, flowed into the black tortoise adamantine armor, making it suddenly glitter in golden aura. Lu Menjie has been watching this entire scene. She was unable to see what means Chen Shang had used. He didn't even bled on it to have it recognize him as its owner. He also hadn't done any sacrificial refining, he just simply took the black tortoise adamantine armor and produced this scene. It was as if this ancient armor had recognized Chen Shang. The following scene made Lu Menjie even more shocked. The golden light exuding from black tortoise adamantine armor suddenly started moving. Like water, it slowly squirmed onto Chen Zhang's body. Meanwhile Chen Zhang's eyes were closed. It seemed as if he had entered a strange state. Lu Menjie's lips slightly parted. With wide open eyes, she looked at the spectacle in front of her. The black tortoise adamantine armor was flowing over Chen Zhang's whole body. Suddenly, it seeped into Chen Zhang's clothes, and its aura also slowly faded away. She had heard that the black tortoise adamantine armor would be awake every 10,000 years to find its master. It seems that Chen Shang was the master the black tortoise adamantine armor had been waiting for all these years. How did this happen? Lu Menjie wasn't able to understand anything, she just understood that Chen Shang had a lot of confidential secrets. Chapter 170, The Vermilion Bird Divine Weapon. Chapter 170 The Vermilion Bird Divine Weapon. Chen Shang felt the black tortoise adamantine armor integrating into his body, as if it was becoming a part of him, merging into his skin. As long as he wished, he could release the black tortoise adamantine armor at any time. The black tortoise adamantine armor had disappeared, Chen Zhang's body had also returned to its original appearance. As he opened his eyes, he started laughing madly. Accompanied with his laughter was a golden aura that broke out from his body. A scale armor dress glittering in golden light was revealed on his body. It was a complete set of clothes, along with a pair of boots. It looked very mighty and domineering. This is the black tortoise adamantine armor, Chen Shang said in ecstasy and glanced at the domineering armor on his body. At this point, it seemed his body was coruscating in a strange atmosphere, similar to a heavenly god disdaining the whole world. This made Lu Menjie unable to take her eyes off of Chen Shang. For the very first time, she felt attracted to this man. This newfound feeling was strangely wonderful. Now, Chen Shang not only possessed the black tortoise adamantine armor, but he was also able to use his true qi. This made him feel like he was invincible inside the black tortoise mysterious realm, like he was the ruler, the god of this realm. With a single thought, this mighty and domineering golden full-body armor suddenly disappeared from Chen Shang. While the dazed Lu Menjie also quickly regained her sense and a tint of red appeared on her haggard, pale yet still pretty face. Her heart was pounding quickly. This kind of feeling just now made her nervous, shy, and somewhat helpless. Various kinds of feelings had come flooding into her mind, making her somewhat at a loss. Sister Menjie, how are your injuries? Chen Shang asked with a mischievous smile. At the moment, he was feeling very good. Originally, he had decided that after obtaining the black tortoise adamantine armor, he would leave the black tortoise mysterious realm. However, now that he found himself able to use true qi, he wanted to kill some demon beasts in here. Lu Menjie was still a strong martial artist ruling an empire, so she quickly quelled her fretting feelings and dismissively said, much better. Congratulations, you were able to get this divine armor. Lu Menjie only felt jealous and envy now. Chen Shang now possessed two peerless divine equipments. Chen Shang sat down on the ground. With a mischievous smile, he stared at the extra small box. Inside it, there was really a Dan. He didn't know what type of Dan it was, so he directly gave it to Su Meiyao for studying. Afterwards, he opened that beast skin. Black Tortoise External Strength Technique. Chen Shang read with a frown, the cultivator of the Black Tortoise External Strength Technique has to be psychologically prepared. The process is very rough, however the cultivator will gain a great deal of benefits. This is what we discovered together, Sister Menjie, do you want it? I'll make a copy for you. Chen Shang said. No need, it's not for me. Lu Menjie refused. Chen Shang took out the Azure Dragon Slaughtering Devil Blade, smiled and said, now that there is the opportunity, I'll let you take a look at my Azure Dragon Slaughtering Devil Blade, and you let me take a look at your Vermilion Bird Divine Weapon. He set the Azure Dragon Slaughtering Devil Blade on the ground. The blade's body looked very coarse. However, upon a closer inspection, one could see numerous small spirit veins above it. Lu Menjie looked at it with rapt attention. When she reached her hand out to grab it, she could not help but frown because she was unable to move it. Before, she had been injured by the crystal case, and had not yet fully recovered. Chen Shang also didn't speak. From the side calmly looked at this haggard beauty which would make others feel pity. Lu Menjie seriously observed the spirit veins on the blade body. Unconsciously, an hour passed. The hell spirit grass efficacy was very good, and Lu Menjie had recovered a lot in this hour. She was now able to pick up the Azure Dragon Slaughtering Devil Blade, and just as Chen Shang had said, it was very heavy. She estimated it currently weighed a good tens of thousands of jin. Lu Menjie took out a square crystal, and slightly smiled towards Chen Shang. I will now record these spirit veins on this crystal above, may I? As you wish, Chen Shang laughed and said. Currently, he was in very good mood. Not to mention, he and Lu Menjie had gone through fire and water together. Although there was a difference of heaven and earth between the strengths of two, there were not any hard feelings. With the square crystal, Lu Menjie skimmed over the two sides of the blade. Looking at that crystal glittering in a white light, an excited look covered her face. Afterwards, she returned the Azure Dragon Slaughtering Devil Blade to Chen Shang. Sister Menjie, let me take a look at your Vermilion Bird Divine Weapon now. Chen Shang retrieved the Azure Dragon Slaughtering Devil Blade and hurriedly said. He was just curious, that's all. However, he saw Lu Menjie's face was slightly red and seemed to be thinking about something. Her pretty face was getting more and more red more with time. She was getting very shy, but there was a different kind of charm in it. If it's inconvenient, never mind. Upon seeing Lu Menjie was somewhat embarrassed, Chen Shang could not help but imagine things. This made him even more curious about the Vermilion Bird Divine Weapon. Lu Menjie nibbled on her lips. After thinking for a good while, she faintly said, during my childhood, my parents came back after a long trip from the outside and handed me the Vermilion Bird Divine Weapon. At that time, they didn't know what it was, they just knew it was a very powerful divine weapon and held some relations with the Vermilion Bird. They also didn't tell me where they obtained it from. Besides, right after they returned, they went into closed-door training for a very long time. It seemed they were very seriously injured. Chen Shang listened very carefully. It was very important to him because there could very well be the details which could give him a clue about the very last divine weapon of the four symbols. This weapon was a very, very long ribbon. We didn't know its use, but once, I wrapped it around my body. Afterwards, a transformation occurred and it changed into a transparent ribbon. Since then, it has wrapped around my body and it's hard to take it off. Ever since, it's been on my body. Although this happened, it didn't affect me negatively, on the contrary, it helped me greatly and saved my life many times. Lu Menjie said with a slightly red face. Chen Shang now understood why Lu Menjie was embarrassed. After all, the Vermilion Bird Divine Weapon was on her body. Thinking about this point, Chen Zhang's heart was slightly moved. A transparent ribbon was wrapped around her body, that seemed extremely tempting. Chen Shang stared at Lu Menjie and that impressive chest. He mischievously laughed and said, it's been bridled but can still grow so big. Lu Menjie uttered a snort and said, although it is wrapped around my body, I do not feel its existence. When it touches water, it would disappear, as if it was very afraid of water. Chen Shang replied, no wonder, the Vermilion Bird is fire while the Black Tortoise is water. That's probably why when you touched the Black Tortoise adamantine armor you received such a big backlash. Lu Menjie also nodded her head in agreement. Now you understand, it is very inconvenient to allow you to take a look. However, I will not take advantage of you. But you must promise me, you cannot speak about this matter. Chen Zhang's heart was suddenly jolted. He had an astonished look on his face. If the Vermilion Bird Divine Weapon was wrapped around Lu Menjie's body, if she let him take a look, wouldn't this? Thinking till there, Chen Shang fiercely swallowed his saliva. This made Lu Menjie's face red. She scolded in a low voice, I'll only let you take a look at my back, don't even think of looking at the front. Can I touch? After all, you had touched my Azure Dragon Slaughtering Devil Blade for long. Chen Shang said with a nasty laugh. In his heart, he was elated. With tightly knit elegant eyebrows, Lu Menjie stared at Chen Shang. Her face was filled with resentment. She didn't know why there was such a change in Chen Zhang's attitude. If it was before, she wouldn't even glance at him. However, now she felt less conflicted about Chen Shang. Unconsciously, a complex emotion once again surged in her heart. She slightly nodded her head, you cannot touch for a long time. Chen Shang was startled. Originally, he was just kidding. He had not expected Lu Menjie to actually agree. He nodded his head and smiled, maybe I have a way to wake up the Vermilion Bird Divine Weapon. Chen Shang guessed that Lu Menjie had no Vermilion Bird True Chi and thus was unable to awaken the Vermilion Bird Divine Weapon. However, it seemed that the Vermilion Bird Divine Weapon had already recognized Lu Menjie as its master, so it would still follow her. Lu Menjie was also slightly anticipating this. She knew that Chen Shang had been able to control the Azure Dragon Slaughtering Devil Blade and the Black Tortoise adamantine armor. Chapter 171, Sleeping Divine Weapon. Chapter 171 Sleeping Divine Weapon. Lu Menger had decided to let Chen Shang take a look at her vermilion bird divine weapon, however, at the same time, she was also a little embarrassed. She would need to take off her clothes in front of Chen Shang, and it was somewhat difficult. Facing her back against Chen Shang, she steeled her nerves, slowly untied those white tight robes raining her body. Chen Shang, while holding his breath with wide open eyes, stared at Lu Menger. This enchanting undressing motions, it was very enticing. In his heart, ripples of excitement broke out one after another. Lu Menger only undid her upper garments, but even so, it was more than enough to send Chen Shang in a trance. Her creamy white tender back and graceful sleek waist, they were impossible for Chen Shang to not be tempted. Chen Shang was clearly able to see a layer of very thin transparent ribbon around Lu Menger's body, making it look even more attractive. Lu Menger's both hands were crossed and covering her chest, her rosy face was even more beautiful. As she clenched her teeth, she said in a low voice, "Try to see if you can awake this vermilion bird divine weapon." Only at this time did Chen Shang regain his senses and focused his attention on that transparent silk. Previously, when he was directly staring at her beautiful back, he was swimming in his imagination. He rubbed his hands and went over. Feeling Chen Shang gradually coming closer, Lu Menger could not help but feel tensed. If not for spending so many days with Chen Shang, and if she had not understood Chen Shang, she would never dare to do such a risky thing. From the side, Chen Shang could see that Lu Menger's beautiful hands simply could not cover those round snow-white peaks, and seeing this, blood once again rushed to Chen Zhang's head. At this moment, Chen Shang could not wait to embrace this peerless beauty's back. However, he just thought about it. He reached out his hands and touched that silk on Lu Menger's body, and just as he saw those snow-white pretty shoulders of Lu Menger shaking, Lu Menger let a low moan. Stroking that warm creamy beautiful back across the silk ribbon, Chen Shang secretly praised. He could not resist anymore, so he lightly caressed a good few times, enjoying that kind of stunning feeling he got from his hand. While Lu Menger nibbled her fragrant lips, her heart was madly pounding. She was feeling extremely shy. While touching, Chen Shang could not help but lean his head over, inhaling that innate body fragrance wafting off that Lu Menger's delicate body. Feeling a certain warmth approaching her, Lu Menger turned her head and tenderly shouted, "What are you doing?" Looking at Chen Shang, whose head was leaned over, she immediately became angry from shame. However, she was unable to do anything. She could only grit her teeth and scold him. Chen Shang knew that he couldn't go too far, so he just continued stroking that wrapped silk ribbon on her enchanting back. However, nothing happened like before. In the past, as long as he touched those divine weapon of the four symbols, a transformation would occur. However, as of this moment, nothing was happening. "You may need to pour some of the vermilion bird true qi." Su Meiyao let out a soft snort, looking at Chen Shang taking advantage of other party so cheaply. She very much despised his actions, and she was secretly unhappy. Chen Shang began operating the vermilion bird true qi. However, at this time, Long Shui suddenly imitated his voice and said, "Sister Menger, your body is truly exceptional. Can you let me hug you?" "Dead girl, shut your big mouth." Chen Shang hastily scolded her with his divine sense. As Lu Menger heard him, her tender body quivered. At present, both her hands were over her chest, and she did not dare to randomly move. She was worried that if she removed her hands, Chen Shang might come in front and take a look. "Chen Shang, do not push your luck," Lu Menger said while clenching her teeth. She was somewhat angry. She didn't expect that Chen Shang would suddenly play as a hooligan. "Just joking." Chen Shang gave a hollow laugh and said. He hastily poured the vermilion bird true qi into that silk ribbon. "This is true qi." Lu Menger's voice was quivering. She was horrified. If Chen Shang was able to use his true qi, she was simply not Chen Zhang's opponent, and if Chen Shang wanted to do something to her, she would simply not have any power to resist. Chen Shang pursed his lips and said, "Don't you trust me? Although I was a little bad, I will not do any outrageous things." Suddenly, Chen Shang frowned. He discovered that his vermilion bird true qi was rapidly disappearing. He knew that this vermilion bird divine weapon was about to be activated, just like when he acquired the azure dragon slaughtering devil blade and the black tortoise adamantine armor. During those times, something similar to the current situation had occurred. Lu Menger was also very astonished. She could feel that the ribbon wrapped around her chest was emitting a fiery red aura as a warm current surged into her body, making her feel the strength of the vermilion bird divine weapon. This made her feel as if she was integrating with the vermilion bird divine weapon. Chen Shang retreated a few steps, and with a surprised look on his face, he looked at the fiery red aura that was wrapped around Lu Menger. He exclaimed, "Sister Menger, are you all right?" "I'm fine. I feel that I'm fusing with the Vermilion Bird Divine Weapon." Lu Menger's voice was carrying her excitement and exhilaration. This Vermilion Bird Divine Weapon had followed her for many years, so she already had a deep sentiment for it. However, due to the lack of the Vermilion Bird True Qi, she was unable to awaken the Vermilion Bird Divine Weapon. But with Chen Shang pouring the Vermilion Bird True Qi, it had finally occurred. Chen Shang sat on the ground, watching Lu Menger as she got drunk in joy while firelight was wriggling around her. In his heart, he sighed. Originally he was thinking of collecting the divine weapons of the four symbols, however, now the Vermilion Bird Divine Weapon would definitely not go to him. "I absolutely cannot be lacking, I will refine it myself." Chen Shang clenched his fist, determined. He knew that this would take him a long time. "Chen Shang, this woman got so many benefits, you should ask her to give you a little reward. Maybe stripping naked and letting you have a look, or kiss you or something, hey. Long Shui, this little dragoness roguishly laughed. Her laughter was full of sarcasm. "Dead girl, what do you think of me? I only have complete admiration for her, I don't have any wicked thoughts." Chen Shang scolded in a low voice, "You wait for me, better not let me find the opportunity, otherwise, I will spank your little ass till it's swollen." "Good fellas, I'm afraid. Oh, Sister Meiyao, Sister Yu, you must help me." Long Shui intentionally made her voice filled with fear, which then made Chen Shang secretly clenched his teeth. He knew that this naughty little dragoness had already hit off well with Su Meiyao and Bai Yu. They would usually talk with their divine sense, and Chen Shang simply had no way to snoop what they were talking about. The fiery red aura enshrouding Lu Menger had disappeared, the silk ribbon wrapped around her body from before had also disappeared. Lu Menger opened her eyes, her beautiful face was filled with joy, which added to her exquisite charm. Lu Menger turned around, facing Chen Shang as she warmly smiled and spoke, "Thank you, you let me have this divine weapon." At this instant, Chen Zhang's whole body was burning, he felt warm current rushing into his head, blood almost gushing out from his nose. Because he saw Lu Menger's front directly. Looking at her, he saw those two round voluptuous snow-white peaks of hers, and those two tender red spots on them that were dazzling in a different way. Without any reservations, they were all visible in front of him. This kind of beauty made Chen Zhang's heartbeat and breathing stop. It was as if the whole world had suddenly stopped, and this kind of impact made his mind blank out. However, he had also seen equally mind-blowing figures. Before, he had seen Bai Yu and Su Meiyao's jade-like bodies, so afterwards, he had a certain amount of resistance. "Sister Menger, how about you first get dressed? You like this is just making me extremely embarrassed." Chen Shang, at this instant, finally regained his senses. His face was flustered, and there was an awkward smile on his face as he spoke while turning his head at the same time. Lu Menger finally reacted, her face suddenly became extremely hot, red to the ears. At this moment, she suddenly remembered that she was bare-chested. Previously, in a moment of joy, she was carried away. Fusing with such a powerful divine weapon, she had forgotten this matter in an instance of momentary pleasure. After the shock, she hastily turned around and wore her clothes. Chapter 172, The Vermilion Bird's Tender Thread. Chapter 172 The Vermilion Bird's Tender Thread. Anyhow, Lu Menger was also the tycoon of some forces in a region. She had lived tens of thousands of years, however, she had never appeared this shameful in front of a man. At this moment, she could not wait to erase the memory from before, because it was truly shameful. Although she secretly cursed Chen Shang, this was not Chen Zhang's fault at all. If not for him, she would not even know that the thing which had accompanied her for all these years would be this powerful, not to mention that if it wasn't for him, she would never have truly acquired this thing. Fortunately, in her heart, she didn't abhor Chen Shang, on the contrary, she had a kind of indescribable affection for him, plus he was also quite handsome. All of these combined was the reason why she hadn't really taken it to her heart. Lu Menger got dressed, turned around, then shyly glanced at Chen Shang. Afterwards, she lowered her head, her face completely flustered. Chen Shang looked at her and incessantly clutched his head. He too didn't know what to say, nor how to get past this very embarrassing atmosphere. Cough, cough, Sister Menger, note for the next time, just a moment ago, you made me very embarrassed. Chen Shang dryly coughed twice. This sentence of his made Lu Menger wished to ruthlessly step on his feet. Without even asking, he got see a part of her which no man had ever seen, and now he had the gall to say something like this. Chen Shang waved his hand, mischievously smiled and said, "Forget it, no need for me to apologize, no need to take it to the heart." Lu Menjie stamped her foot and clenched her teeth with a light snort. For the first time in her life, she had seen such a shameless man. It was as if she had forced Chen Shang to look at her, and in her opinion, Chen Shang very cheaply got an advantage from her. "Little rascal, never ever spoke of this to anyone." Lu Menjie's voice became cold. "Rest assured, even if I speak of it, no one is ever going to believe it." Chen Shang laughed and said, "How is that vermilion bird divine weapon? What's it called?" As he spoke the vermilion bird divine weapon, Lu Menjie suddenly became excited as she spread her arms apart, and a fiery red ribbon appeared in her hands. It now seemed that she had forgotten about the previous matter as she excitedly said, "Its name is the vermilion bird's tender thread, which is also fire attributed. The finest it could become is like this silk thread, and in the biggest and the longest state, it could be as big as a giant mountain. If poured true chi in it, it could also spray out very intense flames. Usually, I can also wrap it around my body to act as an armor and resist incoming attacks. However, it could also be used as a weapon. In simpler words, it has lots of usage." While speaking, the vermilion bird's tender thread in her hand suddenly became a silk thread. With Lu Menjie's control, that tender thread was the same as a flying nail, which then penetrated into that sarcophagus. Controlling it once again, the vermilion bird's tender thread suddenly transformed into a ribbon, spewing out an intense fire, making that sarcophagus burst open. If it penetrated the body, it would be an understatement to call it frightening. "It's not just a thread." Lu Menjie tenderly laughed and once again played with the tender thread. The instant she waved her hand, countless fine threads appeared like a net. Through her precise control, those countless threads, one after another, were tied onto stones, and with another wave of her beautiful hands, those stones of various sizes floated along with those countless tender thread. "At present, the tender thread is very stiff." Lu Menjie spoke with a sweet smile and a certain cutesy in her voice as she controlled the vermilion bird's tender thread in a variety of ways. Chen Shang, in his heart, was very astonished. If a person was suddenly penetrated through these many tender thread, wouldn't that mean that that person would be under the control of her palm? The vermilion bird divine weapon's form was not that surprising to him, but its power was totally unexpected. "This is extremely useful for catching demon beasts." Lu Menjie retracted the vermilion bird's tender thread. Her forehead was full of fragrant perspiration, however, she was very pleased. "Menjie sister, can you use your true chi?" Chen Shang asked. Lu Menjie shook her head and doubtfully looked at Chen Shang. "Nope, the only reason I can use the vermilion bird's tender thread is because of the true chi poured by you before. How can you use your true chi? Besides, your true chi is very special. As if this vermilion bird's tender weapon needed your true chi in order to wake up." Chen Shang smiled. "This was originally my confidential secret, not even Shenxian knows about it. It's not that I don't wish to tell it, it's just that the martial exercise I cultivate is very enviable and also very famous. I fear it will bring trouble to Shenxian. But I can tell Sister Menjie. Sister Menjie is very strong, that's why I am not worried." Chen Shang had already decided to pass the vermilion bird divine exercise to Lu Menjie. Anyway, he felt that there was no gap between him and Lu Menjie anymore, as if they were best friends, not to mention he needed very strong and formidable martial artists. Before, Chen Shang had passed the vermilion bird divine exercise to Wu Qianqin. That was in order to save Wu Qianqin's life. If you want to better use this vermilion bird's tender thread, you need to cultivate this martial exercise. I'll now pass it to you. Chen Shang sat on the ground, and indicated Lu Menjie to also sit down. Lu Menjie, after some thinking for a while, asked, "Are you simply going to teach it to me?" Chen Shang mischievously laughed and said, "You think I want something in return? If so, then can you kiss me?" "Humph." Lu Menjie uttered a tender snort, angrily glared at Chen Shang. Thinking about Chen Shang seeing her body a moment before, her face could not help but turn red again. This time, Chen Shang had already begun speaking some of the chanting formula. Lu Menjie quickly wrote it down, and at the same time, she was extremely surprised. She was a Nirvana realm martial artist, and she could naturally see how profound the vermilion bird divine exercise was. Although it was very esoteric, she could still relatively understand it. Half a day passed by. Lu Menjie had completely memorized the vermilion bird divine exercise. As she gratefully looked at Chen Shang, she spoke, Shenxian have a very good husband, I'm also relieved, I'm truly appreciative of you. Chen Shang grinned and said, no need to thank me, you had already thanked me after, hey. Humph, do not mention it. Or I'll punch you. Lu Menger angrily spoke. Though Chen Zhang's character was indeed good, there were still some bad points, otherwise, she would have already been gnawed by Chen Shang till not even her bones were left. Chen Shang stretched his tired waist and said, let's go out and take a look, I want to kill some demon beasts, I'm not a queen like you, not lacking any crystal stones. You know I'm a queen, yet you don't know how to respect me. Lu Menger ruefully retorted. Who told you not to act like a queen in front of me? Chen Shang faintly smiled and said. Lu Menger just uttered a tender snort. She discovered that she simply could not afford to be an empress in front of Chen Shang. It wasn't like that, she would be oftenly molested by Chen Shang and would be easily deceived with just few words. She herself didn't know why she couldn't withstand the fierceness of this young boy, and she could also not think of doing anything terrible to him. Previously, she had tested Chen Zhang's anger, but she didn't want Chen Shang to hate her. After they left the cave, Chen Shang and Lu Menger were very shocked, because outside was now completely different. Their location was still the island, however, contrary to the original scenery of many tall trees and variety of weeds around the island, all kinds of spirit herbs had now filled the surroundings. What the hell happened here? Chen Shang looked at the ground which was now full of spirit herbs. With the scene before him, he could not help but suck in a mouthful of air. Metal spirit tree, 1,000 vein tree, 2 of each, and there were more than 20 fruits on each of them. These were part of the materials for refining the building foundation dan. Zanzhen grass, 10,000 spirit tree, grand elemental tree, these were the materials required for refining the true elemental dan. There were tons of them, and the ground shining in a white glow, it was the white jade skeleton grass, and there were many of them, as if they were just weed, growing everywhere. 10,000 years old ginseng, 10,000 years old blood ginseng, various spirit grasses, and other various commonly used auxiliary herbs were also present in front of them. They were like turnips and carrots in the farmlands, there were just too many of them. Both of Chen Zhang's eyes were glittering as he excitedly said, Sister Menger, I'm an alchemist, these are very useful to me, quickly help me pick it up. Chapter 173, The Fertile Island. Chapter 173 The Fertile Island. This chapter is sponsored by Kairazu. Chen Shang quickly flew up. He first picked up the fruits above the 1,000 vein tree and metal spirit tree, and cautiously dug them up. He wanted to take them back to the extreme Dan King courtyard and plant them. Sister Menger, help me dug the white jade skeleton grass and the other spirit herbs. Quickly, maybe those guys will arrive soon. Chen Shang urged. Lu Menger uttered a tender snort. It was also the first someone had ordered her, not to mention that it was such a dirty work. However, she still started digging the spirit herbs. For her, these spirit herbs didn't amount to anything, she didn't really need them. But because Chen Shang had helped her too much, she obviously wanted to somehow pay him back. From Chen Zhang's arm, a white light quietly flew out as a cute little rabbit, running on the ground littered with herbs, suddenly appeared, and whatever it touched, it would all disappear in a blink of an eye. Dead girl, why did you come out? Chen Shang hastily scolded. It was that greedy little dragoness who was running, but without any scruples, she just charged at those herbs, and fortunately, he had already collected some of the relatively precious herbs. I could not resist, they are just too delicious. I could not resist. Long Shui excitedly shouted. In this place, mainly the herbs for refining the true elemental dan and white jade dan were growing here. But compared to the herbs for refining the true elemental dan, the herbs for refining white jade dan were more abundant. Majority of these were either middle grade or high grade spirit level herbs. This is the raising soul grass. Chen Shang saw a white grass coiled around like a top, and he could not help but exclaim. This was the main herb for refining the low-grade profound level dan, elemental spirit dan. It was also the herb Chen Shang had been looking for so long. The recipe for the elemental spirit dan had been circulating around, however, the herbs had long disappeared out of nowhere, he didn't find them in the Danxiang Tower. Elemental spirit dan was a true profound level dan, and it was unlike the building foundation dan which was so easy to refine. It was mainly used to cultivate the divine sense, and if he had this kind of dan, it would allow him to cultivate Shinto faster, because at present, his Shinto infant soul was just too young. There were not many of this kind of grass, there were about 100 of them, so Chen Shang hurriedly collected them, to the point that he even dug out their roots. According to the records, this raising soul grass would need at least 2 to 3,000 years before it could mature. Once matured, it would be as tall as a leg. All the raising soul grass present before Chen Zhang's eyes were already matured. Chen Shang looked around, and soon he saw only a thumb-sized flower. He was also lacking this little flower. These herbs were hidden below some of the herbs. The petals of these little flowers were exquisitely carved. They looked truly beautiful. After Chen Shang saw those flowers, his whole body was quivering in excitement, because it was the second of the main herb required for refining the elemental spirit Dan, the divine spirit flower. It was a kind of herb which would absorb the spirit chi of heaven and earth and would produce a large amount of ownerless divine sense, making it an extremely rare herb. There were only 100 flowers, so Chen Shang once again quickly started picking them up, lest Long Shui, this little greedy dragoness, would eat these herbs. 10 days quickly passed. All the herbs around them have all been completely picked by Chen Shang and Lu Menger. According to Chen Zhang's estimation, from these herbs, he would be able to refine 800 building foundation dans, 10,000 true elemental dans, and 5,000 white jade dans. However, he still lacked some of the other herbs. For example, for the building foundation dan, he needed the azure profound fruits and monster dans. For the true elemental dan, he needed spirit crystal essence, and for white jade dan, he needed the white spirit essence. However, this was not a problem. Chen Shang looked around the now fully dug desolated ground. He laughed and said, "I'm rich." As long as he had refined those herbs into dans, he would certainly be rich. Long Shui had also ate well and had already returned on Chen Zhang's arm. However, she complained to Chen Shang that he had already taken away all the good herbs. She didn't even get to see them. Lu Menger was also busy for these 10 days and 10 nights. She wasn't able to understand how Chen Shang could bear to make her, a charming beauty, to work in the fields, which was a very tiring work. Before, this place could have been covered by an illusion array, and what we saw was just an illusion. After you had obtained the black tortoise adamantine armor, only then did the illusion array disappeared. Lu Menger looked at the surroundings. She discovered how the surroundings have changed too much. This is not a realm within a realm, but a very large dreamland, and the only reason why we could directly come here was because we were going downstream. In other words, the place we came through before was nothing but an illusion. Lu Menger ate Chen Zhang's dan, and all the fatigue she had these past few days had also disappeared. Chen Shang nodded his head. He was not a bit tired because he could use his true qi. He was just about to spread his vermilion bird firewing. However, Long Shui suddenly spoke. "First, don't fly. There is a place in this neighborhood which seems to be exuding a very strong death qi. There should be a lot of dead demon beasts there." Seeing Chen Shang vermilion bird fire wings, Lu Menger was secretly envious. However, she now also knew the vermilion bird divine exercise, so she too have the vermilion bird fire wings. Because Chen Shang had taught her this powerful divine exercise, she was really moved. "Sister Menger, there seems to be a good thing around here." Chen Shang mischievously smiled. The last time this mysterious realm was opened was 10,000 years ago, and only due to rich spirit qi was it able to breed out so many good herbs. Long Shui had already told him the way, so Chen Shang just walked towards a side of the island, while Lu Menger was following behind him. Although she didn't come here to obtain the black tortoise adamantine armor, the vermilion bird's tender thread on her body had been awakened, so it could be counted as a big harvest. Through the forest, they arrived at the edge of the island. Surprisingly, on this side of the island, there were many giant beast skeletons. However, these skeletons were very rotten, to the point that they were practically useless. However, after seeing rich death qi in this place, Chen Shang was very surprised. He faintly suspected that there might be some hell spirit grass here. "There!" Lu Menger suddenly shouted. Far away, she pointed in the front. Chen Shang looked and was suddenly shocked. On the water, a group of people suddenly appeared, densely packed together, and were rapidly rushing towards the very island they were currently on. Most of them were swimming in the water, and their speed was also very fast. It really was an illusion array. Now that the illusion array had disappeared, they can very easily sense this island. As long as they aren't stupid, they know that there must be something hidden here. Lu Menger looked very serious. She could see the land at the other side from the shore of the island. Before, the island and that land was separated and was only accessible through the passage, but now it was visible. "Sister Menger, cover up your face, don't let them recognize you," Chen Shang said as he quickly shuttled through countless groups of skeletons, rummaging through some of them. Lu Menger took out a black robe and put it on. then she wrapped a black cloth around her head, making it so that only her eyes were revealed. Those people in the water were getting closer and closer, and there were hundreds of them, but Lu Menjie didn't find Shui Xiangxian among the group. Those tens of giant beast skeletons were all rummaged through by Chen Shang. However, Chen Shang didn't find the hell spirit grass, he also didn't see any monster Dan. Looking at those people slowly approaching and was about to reach the shore, Lu Menjie said in a heavy tone, Chen Shang, how about we avoid them? At this point, Chen Shang saw a human-sized small mound. He felt something was there, so he fiercely blasted a palm facing the mound. The mound suddenly burst open as a green aura suddenly broke out, tens of coconut-sized green light ball fell out. Seeing these things, Chen Shang and Lu Menjie were extremely shocked. At the same time, they could feel an abundant life force emanating out of these light balls. Surprisingly, these were monster Dans, and they were also huge. Those people madly swimming in the water had also seen these things, so they could also feel the energy emitted by these light balls. Although it was harder for them to believe that these were all monster Dans, now was not the time to doubt, these were also treasures. Those people shouted in madness, so Chen Shang immediately released his divine sense and entirely stored those 50 monster Dans into his storage pouch. It is Chen Shang, that guy is Chen Shang. All those monster Dans have been pocketed by him. One guy growled, his voice was filled with jealousy and anger. Chen Shang didn't pay any attention to these people, but he lowered his head and looked at the blasted open mound. He quickly found the very thing he was looking and assumed to be here. It was a wash basin size of blackish spirit grass. Chen Shang crouched down, while both his hands were trembling as he carried that big and thick spirit grass in his hands and muttered, it really is the hell spirit grass. All the energy from these beast skeletons had been absorbed by this spirit grass. One more to come. Chapter 174, Destroy. Chapter 174 Destroy. Lu Menjie had totally not expected the hell spirit grass to be inside the mound, and it to be so huge. She looked at those people desperately swimming in the water and shouted, Chen Shang, walk quickly. Those people who were coming from afar had encountered many demon beasts along the way, killing a path forward. They had arrived here in order to find the black tortoise adamantine armor, but they were helpless when trying to use their true chi. In addition to all of this, there was someone else right in front of them, seizing dozens of huge monster Dans and a giant hell spirit grass. It's a hell spirit grass. Quickly put it down Chen Shang or else I'll take your life. A man threatened in a ferocious voice with an extremely envious look. They believed Chen Shang was unable to use true chi, and thus was very weak. Not to mention there was so many of them. Chen Shang stored that hell spirit grass, turned around and happily laughed at the crowd. He replied, why should I put it down? I was the first one to get here and take it, therefore it's mine. These people couldn't understand how Chen Shang was so quick to arrive here. However, just too many people came in the mysterious realm and they just couldn't control who was coming in. At this moment, everyone only had those dozens of monster Dans and the hell spirit grass in their minds. Although Chen Shang was the first one to obtain all of this, it didn't matter for any of them, they all wanted to rob it. As they were unable to use true chi within this mysterious realm, it was very difficult to tell who was weak and who was strong. Chen Shang glanced at those 300 to 400 people, he found that most of them were sect's disciples, and the majority of them were in the true martial realm. There were even a few who had entered the 3 extreme great realms. However, they were all unable to mobilize their true chi and had almost similar physical strength. That large group of people had already arrived at the shore and were panting for air. At this time, Lu Menjie took out a golden plate. On the plate, 4 words were engraved, Divine Weapon Heavenly Empire. She coldly said, disciples of the Divine Weapon Heavenly Empire, all of you go back. Looking at the token, 20 to 30 people jumped back into the water, one after another. They were very clear what would happen if they violated that order. They also knew whoever held such a token, definitely didn't have a low status. Surprisingly, amidst these disciples, there were also many from the extreme martial sect. Chen Shang coldly said, disciples of the extreme martial sect, are you also planning to rob me of my things? Chen Shang was also a disciple of the extreme Dan King courtyard. Besides, he was also a level 4 alchemist and had entered the true martial realm at such a young age. They could very well imagine his position in the extreme martial sect. 20 to 30 disciples from the extreme martial sect receded to one side one by one. However, there was still a small part of the extreme martial sect disciples who choose to remain. Sister Menjie, you chase those disciples of the Divine Weapon Heavenly Empire. Go take a look to see whether Shui Shenxian has come. Chen Shang was extremely worried in his heart. Lu Menjie was also equally worried, however, regardless of her worry, she couldn't just leave Chen Shang. No way, how are you going to handle them alone? Lu Menjie replied back with her divine sense. Quickly leave, I'm worried about Shenxian, I can use my true qi, not even you or my opponent right now. Chen Shang firmly spoke. Lu Menjie frowned, her elegant eyebrows scrunching together. Chen Shang was now possessed the black tortoise adamantine armor and the azure dragon slaughtering devil blade, moreover he could also use true qi. She truly had nothing to worry about. If Chen Shang was unable to defeat these people, he could still fly away. Only after Chen Shang had urged her several times, did Lu Menjie run to the shore and took out the very small boat with which they had come here with. Don't let that woman leave. A man took out a broadsword and rushed towards Lu Menjie. However, he had taken no more than a few steps before Chen Shang suddenly appeared in front of that man. Facing the man, Chen Shang fiercely rammed a fist onto that man's chest. Chen Shang had now mobilized his universal true qi. This kind of true qi was colorless and invisible, and yet it was extremely overbearing, carrying a very destructive power. Just a single punch had blasted that man into smithereens. No one else had their true qi defense. Facing this level of Chen Zhang's punch, none of them had the capability to resist it. Remember to look for me, Lu Menjie softly said, before she quickly started rowing the small boat. At this time, Chen Shang quietly used his divine sense and water-attributed true qi, to create a force in the water, propelling Lu Menjie's small boat. In the blink of an eye, it caught up with those disciples from the divine weapon Heavenly Empire. Chen Shang, you just killed a level 5 true martial realm martial artist from my true martial sect. An old man furiously roared. What about it? Whoever want to attack my friend will have to face me. Chen Shang sneered and said, if you don't want to die, head back now. Anyone thinking of seizing my things, will be eradicated regardless of identity, no exceptions. Looking at Chen Shang blasting a martial artist of 5th level of the true martial realm into smithereens with just a fist, everyone could clearly see how strong Chen Shang was. Some of these people had already receded, and they returned back into the water, all of them had started swimming back. Now, there were not even 100 people left on the shore, including 30 or so people wearing robes, which were extremely familiar to Chen Shang. Members of Free Immortal Sea. Chen Shang was slightly surprised. The fact that these people could arrive here confirmed that they were certainly not weak. There were 30 Free Immortal Sea disciples in the true martial realm, it seemed their overall strength was also rather not bad. Even the other sects only had a few disciples who were able to come here. TLN. In Chapter 156 and 157 Free Immortal Sea was the Happy Immortal Sea, which now had been changed to Free Immortal Sea and have already been changed back. The true qi of the disciples of the true martial sect was strangely pure, it was easy to tell them apart. Meanwhile, the true qi of the disciples of the beast martial sect had the darkest and evilest qi, this was related to the martial exercise that they were cultivating. As such, it was also very easy to tell the difference from the crowd. Beside the 30 disciples of the Free Immortal Sea, there were also the disciples from the true martial sect and the beast martial sect in here. This was because all of these sects had listed Chen Shang as a wanted person. Which was also the reason why they hated Chen Shang so much, they very much wished to kill Chen Shang, and get the reward while they're at it. You all want to rob my things? Chen Shang asked with a sneer. We had already seen you got something, and we all want a share of it. You should hurry up and give it to us. A middle-aged man said, he was a member of the Free Immortal Sea. You have only looked at my shit, and you still want a little taste of it. Chen Shang said dismissively. After hearing this statement, many people could not help but laugh. Presumptuous brat, today we will let you see how formidable our Free Immortal Sea is. That middle-aged suddenly became furious. While wielding a sharp blade, he pounced towards Chen Shang, only to see Chen Shang sidestep and dodge the attack. At this time, many other Free Immortal Sea's disciples rushed over. When other people saw it, none of them wanted the other people to nab Chen Zhang's things first. So they simultaneously came out and fight. Chen Shang suddenly angrily roared, and everyone saw an oppressive true qi suddenly exploded out from him. This true qi was very powerful and was constantly getting stronger and stronger by the minute. Forming an extremely oppressive pressure, one by one, the entire crowd halted their footsteps as horrified expressions appeared on their faces. Chen Shang could actually use his true qi and it was also so powerful. Chen Zhang's eyes were very red. With a very grim look, he mobilized the universal true chi, and his slaughtering heart followed his emotions, filling this true chi with a murderous aura. This kind of slaughter chi covered the entire island and made it very difficult to breathe for everyone. The people in the water could not help but reveal a horrified expression. They were far away, however, they could still sense the true chi emanating from Chen Shang. Since none of them could use their true chi, they were the same as ants in front of Chen Shang. Ha ha, didn't you want to kill me? Come, come, Chen Shang laughed fiercely, his whole face was fully ferocious. His crimson eyes were glittering with murderous intention, it made him look very frightening. Those 100 people in the crowd were simply unable to move. Chen Shang released his true chi, which was the same as a mountain pressing on their body. Some of them had already started vomiting blood from their internal injuries. Of course, everyone was very much afraid. They could all feel the strength Chen Shang possessed. Just a casual look from him had rendered all of them immobile. Chen Shang, if you kill us, the beast martial sect will definitely hunt you down till the world's end. A young man spoke, then immediately vomited blood. He knelt down, with a complete look of shock. You just destroyed my Dantian. 300 years of cultivation all gone. Chen Shang, I'll kill you. He had yet to finish his sentence before he vomited yet another mouthful of blood, fainting and falling to the ground. One more to come. Chapter 175, Dominating the Mysterious Realm. Chapter 175 Dominating the Mysterious Realm. Chen Shang, what are you doing? An old man shouted in a quivering voice. It could be said he was merely a fish on the chopping block, begging Chen Shang for mercy. Just a moment ago, a quite powerful person was crippled just like that. In their hearts, everyone was panic-stricken. Previously, all of these people had rushed Chen Shang in a threatening manner, wanting to rob him of all his things. However, now they were similar to dead people, their faces full of fear and despair. I will not kill you, but I will just waste you all. I want to let you group of bullies experience bullying today. I will make you feel with your body just how hateful getting bullied feels. Chen Shang said with a ferocious and frightening grin. A powerful chi suddenly burst out from him as the island shook. Those 100 people, each and every one of them, simultaneously uttered blood-curdling screams. In the end, everyone cried in despair and rolled on the ground, vomiting blood. All of them felt extreme fear, anger and despair at the same time. However, none of them could do anything. Every single one of them had just been crippled, all the true chi within their body had been mysteriously scattered by Chen Shang. Not only was their painstakingly lifelong cultivation completely scattered in just a moment, their Dantian had also been destroyed. This rendered them unable to cultivate ever again, it was a fate worse than death. Amidst these people, there were a few who had entered the 3 extreme great realms. They were all simultaneously cursing Chen Shang furiously. Their lives had already been ruined, they had nothing left to fear, death would be a release for some. Chen Shang, our free immortal sea will not let you off. An old man from the free immortal sea ferociously said, his eyes were filled with ferociousness. Chen Shang didn't know why, but he felt like his strength was even more powerful inside the Black Tortoise mysterious realm. Surprisingly, he seemed to be able to control the spirit chi in here in any way he wished to. He felt that this strange phenomenon was related to him obtaining the Black Tortoise adamantine armor. Chen Shang, originally, the Beast Martial Sect just listed you as wanted to inflict conflict with the Extreme Martial Sect. However, now you are finished. Our Beast Martial Sect will definitely make you our biggest enemy. Just wait, our Dean will personally hunt you down. A Beast Martial Sect disciple furiously shouted, his voice sounded greatly satisfied. So what, aren't you just a waste? Whether I kill or cripple you, you will all remain waste. Yet you are still mouthing off. Chen Zhang's words made the crowd's body tremble. Their faces were filled with helplessness, a complete lack of hope. None of them could imagine how they were going to live in the future. Chen Shang, you better kill all of us. Otherwise, we will head back to the Extreme Martial Sect and inform the Dean. You will definitely be severely punished. We are all from the same sect yet you still used such ruthless means against us. A man resolutely said. Amidst this group of crippled people, there were a few disciples from the Extreme Martial Sect. Chen Shang obviously knew this, however, he still didn't show any mercy. I had already given you the opportunity to leave. It's too bad you didn't know how precious it was. It's no wonder, all of you asked for this. If you were not so greedy, you would not have ended up like this. Chen Shang coldly retorted. He then released his vermilion bird fire wings and flew towards the opposite shore. Some people were swimming back. Amidst them, a few were disciples of the true martial sect, the beast martial sect, and the free immortal sea. At this time, they still had lingering fear and were secretly very glad. If they had not chosen to leave a moment ago, they would probably be lying there amongst the crippled disciples. Chen Shang was very aware of the consequences of crippling that group of people. However, he felt no regret. When that group of people had decided to act against him, no thoughts of any mercy went through his mind. Lu Mengzhi, along with the disciples of the Divine Weapon Heavenly Empire, had already traveled very far where Chen Shang was. He flew to the other side of the shore, however, he didn't see any sign of them. Afterwards, he continued to fly down the river, but he could not understand why all these people would come to this island. He remembered there were tons of demon beasts along this path. Chen Shang looked down on the land. He found that the landscape was very different from what he had seen before. He also didn't see any sign of those countless amounts of spirit beasts. Suddenly, he noticed a small boat moving very quickly in the huge river. Chen Shang landed on that small boat. Lu Mengzhi's entire head was wrapped in a black cloth, only her 2 eyes were visible. However, just from the expression in her eyes, it could be seen that she was very worried about something. What happened? Chen Shang hastily asked. A lot of things had occurred. The 3 tycoons of your extreme martial sect are fighting the experts of the true martial sect and the beast martial sect. Their fight broke out in here. After many of the people came inside, they found out they could not use their true qi. Some of them have already left. Shenxian has not come in. Lu Mengzhi replied. So I can relax. Chen Shang sighed in relief. I heard that your extreme martial sect's 3 tycoons were being suppressed. Also, along the way I also heard that a force called the Free Immortal Sea appeared. Lu Mengzhi said. She was worried about Chen Shang. She knew that he had definitely not shown any mercy against those people from before, which would undoubtedly further intensify the conflicts between those sects and him. While the extreme martial sect would definitely guard Chen Shang, and because there were 3 extremely strong martial artists personally taking charge, no one would dare rush in. However, if the 3 tycoons of the extreme martial sect fell here, then Chen Zhang's predicament could very well be imagined. Sister Mengzhi, have you heard of the Free Immortal Sea before? Chen Shang asked. Lu Mengzhi shook her head. Wait, I'll help your extreme martial sect, but I cannot allow my identity to be found out. Otherwise, it would be detrimental for the Divine Weapon Heavenly Empire. Chen Shang shook his head with a laugh. Sister Mengzhi, you can just leave the Black Tortoise mysterious realm right now. Just leave all those troublesome things to me. Hey, he knew that as the Empress of the Divine Weapon Heavenly Empire, Lu Mengzhi was in charge of the entire empire. However, the Divine Weapon Heavenly Empire's forces were not just hers alone, it belonged to the whole nation. If she offended other forces, it would inevitably hurt her citizens. Thinking about the fact Chen Shang could now use his true qi, as well as possessing 2 divine weapons, Lu Mengzhi could not help but be dazed for a moment. In a quivering voice, she asked, are you planning to? However, she didn't finish her sentence. After entering the Black Tortoise mysterious realm, no one else was able to use their true qi. Chen Shang was the only exception. When comparing his current strength with those Deans, his strength was not far off. After all, those Deans could only rely on their physical strength. These people just perennially cultivated their true qi, and very easily ignored their body in their path of cultivation. Chen Shang estimated that their external strength would only compare to the 5th or 6th level of the immortal and devil body. He had the Azure Dragon slaughtering devil blade, and could also cast the powerful universal true qi from his 5 elements. How could he not be fearless of these tycoons? Sister Mengzhi, the overall situation is very important. Besides, this our extreme martial sect's matter, we can solve it ourselves. Chen Shang confidently smiled. At this moment, he was completely prepared to make trouble. He could not wait to immediately head over and fight with those Deans. Lu Mengzhi sighed. If you have time, come to the Divine Weapon Heavenly Empire and find me. This token of the Divine Weapon Heavenly Empire will give you a lot more convenience when you are in the Divine Heavenly Empire. Chen Shang took that golden medal from Lu Mengzhi and then smiled. At that time, I could not be so intimate with you. Otherwise, Shenxian will be jealous. Lu Mengzhi's pretty face was flushing. With a cold snort, she said, quickly leave and help your Dean out. Chen Shang learned that Ji Yu Dongchen and the others were fighting here in a relatively open space. They had been fighting for a long time while he cheaply gained all the benefits. Seeing Chen Shang fly away in the sky, Lu Menjie let out a complex sigh. All the things that had transpired with Chen Shang in this black tortoise mysterious realm was very hard to believe, even for her. It felt like it was just a dream. At the same time, an inexplicable feeling of nostalgia arose in her heart. In a mountain ridge far away, the sound of fighting was resounding throughout the area. It was the brittle sound of weapons clashing with each other, along with the occasional explosions. Chapter 176, Recreating History. Chapter 176 Recreating History. Chen Shang landed down and quietly climbed on the mountain. The view at the hilltop was a complete barren plain, and on the plain, 10 or so figures were present. With one glance, Chen Shang was able to identify Ji Yudongchen, Elder Dan and Wu Kaming amidst those 10 or so figures, and they were face to face against 9 people. That handsome face of Ji Yudongchen was bleary in exhaustion, however, it was still filled with a majestic aura. Elder Dan was wearing a mask on her face. He was unable to see her complexion, while Wu Kaming, that old baldy, also had a weary look. Among the other 9 people, 3 were from the Free Immortal Sea, and the other 6 were deans and elders of the Beast Martial Sect and the True Martial Sect. Chen Shang had read some books, where he had seen the portraits of the Dean of the True Martial Sect and the Beast Martial Sect. Soon, he was able to identify them. The Dean of the Beast Martial Sect was one very stout fellow. His name was Zhen Jushang. His whole body was hairy. With a big beard, he looked like a gorilla with a pair of dark green eyes looking very aghast. He was just like a demon beast while clasping a giant twin hammer, glaring at Ji Yudongchen's group. The Dean of the True Martial Sect was a middle-aged man with a refined style, named Tang Yichao, wearing a plain white robe and holding a longsword. With his delicate features and very cleanly trimmed hair and beard, it produced a sharp contrast with the Dean of the Beast Martial Sect. At this time, Chen Shang heard Ji Yudongchen speaking. "We have been fighting for so long, are we still going to keep fighting? Bullshit, you're tired to death, very soon, you will be lying on the ground, you will lose." That Dean of the Beast Martial Sect, Zhen Jushang roared. "Humph, you have been taking turns while fighting. The fact that we can sustain ourselves till now is the very proof that you are all wastrels." Elder Dan coldly said. Her voice was full of disdain. That refined Dean of the True Martial Sect calmly said, "If this continue to go on like this, indeed it will harder to say at what time the fight will be finished. We will just send 3 people from our side and fight with one of you. As long as you win, it will prove that you are indeed stronger than us, and we'll get out of here." Ji Yudongchen's complexion turned cold. They were now very tired. If they were going to fight 1 against 3, it would be very difficult to win. "Junior sister, junior brother, let's go. We can't manage the black tortoise adamantine armor." Elder Dan and Wu Kaming also supported Ji Yudongchen's decision. If they continue to go like before, all 3 of them would fall in this place. Fighting alone with the True Martial Sect, the Beast Martial Sect and the Free Immortal Sea for so long could already be considered as good. "Want to leave? No way." An old man sneered and said. He was from the Free Immortal Sea. Chen Shang could see now, the Free Immortal Sea with the Beast Martial Sect and the True Martial Sect had banded together. Ji Yudongchen and company were now extremely tired. It would be a good opportunity to eradicate them in one swoop. Tang Yichao and Zhen Jushang also had the same wicked intention. They decided to remove Ji Yudongchen and company. With them gone, the extreme martial sect would be similar to a flock of sheep who had lost its shepherd, and it would be a good opportunity to occupy the extreme martial province. "Attack!" Tang Yichao coldly spoke, and with 2 other elders who were relatively weaker than him, he charged towards Wu Kaming. The 3 individuals from the Free Immortal Sea also simultaneously acted, charging straight at Ji Yudongchen. Elder Dan was besieged by Zhen Jushang of the Beast Martial Sect and 2 other people. Soon, they all fell into a melee battle. All of them were martial artists ruling over a region of the Qinwu mainland. However, now they were unable to use their true qi, and they could only rely on their physical strength. However, they were still very powerful. Chen Shang estimated that all of them at least had strength comparable to the 5th level of the true martial realm. Then next scene was very intense. Ji Yudongchen, Wu Kaming and Elder Dan fought alone against 3 people. It was an extremely difficult battle. Wu Kaming suffered 3 heavy punches. Elder Dan's black robe was also torn. Ji Yudongchen had also suffered several palm strikes. They could no longer hold on, which made Zhen Jushang and Tang Yichao very excited. Their attacks became even more ruthless and vicious. Each of their attacks were very fatal, striking at the most vulnerable points. Chen Shang operated the Tai Chi subduing dragon exercise, converged his breath, in his heart, secretly shouted, "At any rate I'm still their martial uncle, and I have to do something to be worthy of being their martial uncle." While speaking, Chen Zhang's figure suddenly disappeared. With his fastest speed, he rushed down from the peak of the mountain and soon arrived in the chaotic battlefield. At this moment, Elder Dan was being besieged by 3 martial artists of the Beast Martial Sect, and it was getting harder for to resist any longer. Zhen Zhushang, with his giant twin hammer, quickly struck at her. Elder Dan dodged that strike, and she was also able to deal with the sword strikes of the other 2. If she made the slightest mistake, she could very well be seriously injured. An elder of the Beast Martial Sect suddenly once again took out a sword. It was unexpectedly a second sword. In a very tricky angle, he thrust it at Elder Dan's chest. When it appeared that it was just about to penetrate Elder Dan's chest, an extremely aggressive True Chi arrived. It was very violent and frightening, with a kind of dragon might disdaining the whole world, fully shrouding the battlefield. In that very moment, everyone's gaze were transfixed at Elder Dan's side. They could see a young figure, and this young figure had a giant blade glittering in an azure aura in his hand. "Chen Shang, hold your hand." Zhen Zhushang suddenly roared. However, Chen Zhang's blade already mercilessly struck that elder's waist. Accompanied with an outbreak of sharp chi wave, that old man let out a howl, before he was directly cut into 2 by Chen Shang from the waist. A blade just fell, and Chen Shang once again raised his blade and struck towards Zhen Zhushang. Everyone saw Chen Zhang's complexion was extremely sinister. However, a dark cold slaughter chi was rushing out from his body. The 5 elements True Chi within his dantian quickly fused together, transforming into the universe True Chi, and poured into the azure dragon slaughtering devil blade. With a sky-scattering might, he hacked downwards. Zhen Zhushang fiercely raised his twin hammer, blocking Chen Zhang's madly rushing blade. However, he felt tens of thousands Jin of power slamming down on him. Both his feet sunk into the ground. Also at this moment, Elder Dan suddenly thrusted her sword, penetrating Zhen Zhushang's chest. The remaining elder of the Beast Martial Sect approached from the sky, and facing Chen Shang, he thrusted his sword. "Be careful," Elder Dan exclaimed. Although Zhen Zhushang was stabbed with a sword, he still had abundant strength to spare. He waved his twin hammer towards Elder Dan, mainly preventing her from helping Chen Shang. Chen Shang wasn't able to complete his strike at Zhen Zhushang, and was stabbed by a sword. However, this sword thrust was unable to penetrate his body. It was blocked by the black tortoise adamantine armor under his skin. A golden light directly broke out from Chen Zhang's left fist. True Chi surged into his wrist, transforming into the dragon aura. He punched out, and with dragon aura bursting out one after another, his fist struck on the chest of that elder from the Beast Martial Sect. A thunderous sound suddenly reverberated in the mountain ridge. Before a miserable howl from that elder was echoed out as a giant hole appeared on that elder's chest. It was extremely terrifying. Just a fist of Chen Shang had heavily injured that Beast Martial Sect's elder. Soon, he sidestepped and dodged the incoming giant hammer of Zhen Zhushang. As he dodged, he chopped towards another elder, and that elder's head was chopped down. Blood burst out like a fountain. From the sky, it sprayed down on Zhen Zhushang's body. Chen Shang had once again killed an elder of the Beast Martial Sect, and both of them were Nirvana realm martial artists. They were extremely strong, but out in front of Chen Shang, they were fragile as weeds. Among the 3, 2 had already lost their lives. Chen Shang retreated to Elder Dan's side, while Zhen Zhushang's eyes were very red. Looking at this fallen corpses on the ground, his whole body was trembling in anger. He had a completely furious look as he turned his head and fiercely glared at Chen Shang. "Chen Shang, you." Ji Yu Dongchen and Wu Keiming were both surprised with Chen Zhang's unexpected appearance. Moreover, he was also able to use True Chi, and in one breath, he had actually killed 2 elders of the Beast Martial Sect. Both Ji Yu Dongchen and Wu Keiming stopped their respective fights and arrived besides Elder Dan. At this moment, the people of the True Martial Sect and the Free Immortal Sea were secretly shocked in fear. All of them gathered together, lest Chen Shang attacks. They were unable to understand why Chen Shang was able to use True Chi. Normally, they could slaughter Chen Shang with just a finger. However, Chen Shang was now as strong as them. Chen Shang coldly looked at Zhen Zhushang. The slaughter chi emanating out from his body was getting heavier by the minute. It permeated into each and everyone's heart, making it harder for them to breathe. It was also the very first time they felt Chen Shang was unexpectedly so strong. Chen Shang clenched the azure dragon slaughtering devil blade. 10,000 years ago, his teacher, Huang Jishan had killed the dean of the Beast Martial Sect, and today, he had the opportunity to kill the new dean of the Beast Martial Sect. Chapter 177, The Martial Uncle's Ferocity. Chapter 177 The Martial Uncle's Ferocity. Zhen Zhushang, with a hideous countenance, glared at Chen Shang. Those two elders who had just been killed were both top-ranking martial artists of the beast martial sect. However, now, they had been beheaded by a little devil at the true martial realm. It was even more surprising for Ji Yudongchen and company. At the most crucial moment, they surprisingly had been rescued by their young martial uncle, and for the very first time, they felt that this young martial uncle was worthy of that status, so they suddenly had a newfound respect for Chen Shang. "Brat, today I'll definitely kill you." Zhen Zhushang, at this very moment, was extremely angry. He quickly brandished his twin hammer towards Chen Shang. Chen Shang sneered and said, "You seem to be forgetting the fact that you, in this place, are not my match." Chen Shang clasped the Azure Dragon slaughtering devil blade, rushed over and faced Zhen Zhushang's attack head-on. The spirit veins on the in his blade suddenly glittered, and in the next moment, an Azure Dragon appeared above the blade. As Chen Shang poured his Azure Dragon true chi, it let out shocking roars one after another, similar to an angry dragon. What Chen Shang had just casted was one of the moves of the Dragon Slayer's 7 killing cuts, the Furious Dragon Strike. After casting this move, Chen Shang would represent someone who was carrying endless anger, and without any reservation, he would endlessly pour the Azure Dragon true chi in the Azure Dragon slaughtering devil blade, constantly releasing power, releasing his own anger. Chen Shang fiercely raised the Azure Dragon slaughtering devil blade and directly slashed downwards. In that very moment, it was followed by a burst of waves of azure lightning, and in between heaven and earth, a billowing thunder also broke out, sounding very dreadful. At this moment, the Azure Dragon slaughtering devil blade was carrying thousands upon thousands jin of power, and with a mighty momentum, it swept away all the obstacles in its path. The thunderous sound shocked the whole mysterious realm, and Zhen Zhushang's giant twin hammer had already been destroyed by the Azure Dragon slaughtering devil blade. That huge blade body swiftly struck the body of Zhen Zhushang, drawing out a huge hole on his body as blood violently surged out. It was a scene filled with brutality. Waves of blood like flowers shot out, splashing into a blood mist that gradually filled the air, shocking everyone's mind. Zhen Zhushang was dead. A dignified dean of the beast martial sect had actually died in the hands of a feather brat, and had also died in such a miserable way. Everyone had an ashen look, and with an unbelievable expression, they looked at Chen Shang, who had a dull look on his face. He had just killed a dean, and yet he still had such a calm look, as if nothing special had happened. Tang Yichao, the dean of the true martial sect, was even more ashen. The dean of the beast martial sect was not any weaker than him, and now his fate had come to an end. It can be described as very tragic. Ji Yudongchen's complexion was extremely dignified. He now knew why Chen Shang had been fancied by Huang Jishan. Just this kind of decisive character was enough reason, and regarding this matter, they could not compare with him. If it were them, they would be a lot more hesitant. After all, that was still a dean of a sect. However, Chen Shang didn't even bat his eye, not even once, as he hacked the other party to death with a blade strike. Chen Shang coldly glanced at the people from the Free Immortal Sea and the true martial sect. His eyes were brimming with murderous intention. He had already killed 3 experts of Nirvana realm, and he would definitely not hesitate to behead the rest of them. Kill the witness. As long what happened here was not leaked, no one would know that he was the one who did it. After all, in this Black Tortoise mysterious realm, they were unable to use their true chi. A dean dying in this place was nothing surprising. The martial artists of the Free Immortal Sea and the true martial sect were afraid. Currently, they were unable to use their true chi. Even if their body had an armor or weapon that they could use to protect themselves, it would still be rendered useless while facing Chen Shang. This slaughtering god, with his broadsword, made every one of them very fearful, because they knew they had no chance of winning. "Chen Shang, what do you want to do?" Wu Kaming hastily asked while looking at Chen Shang, who was moving straight towards Tang Yichao. "One will not remain," Chen Shang ruthlessly said, and immediately leapt into the air. "Chen Shang, by doing this, you have made the extreme martial sect fall into a state beyond redemption. You this." Tang Yichao spoke only till here, while in the sky, a huge golden palm created from vigorous true chi suddenly appeared. It fiercely pressed downwards, and in that moment, Tang Yichao took out a spirit rune. After he pressed the spirit runes, Tang Yichao's figure turned into a red light, retreating towards a direction as he quickly shot away. That giant palm pressed down with terrifying power, filled with endless slaughter chi. With hundreds of thousands jin of pressure, it thunderously slammed down, covering the martial artists from the Free Immortal Sea and the true martial sect. The whole plain suddenly shook, accompanied with a burst of explosive rumblings. Under that explosion of true chi, a thick layer of ground was scrapped out as rocks were broken apart. It was very shocking. In the Black Tortoise mysterious realm, Chen Shang was invincible. He suddenly felt his own true chi was somewhat inexhaustible. Just as he had completely consumed his true chi, it would be quickly replenished. The spirit chi of the whole Black Tortoise mysterious realm would surge into his body like it had a will. The giant palm disappeared. Those 5 Nirvana realm martial artists were all crushed and buried underneath, mixed in with dirt. Their bodies were mutilated so badly that their death was already a certainty. Originally, these martial artists were standing at the peak of the Chenwu mainland. However, now, they were just like plain mortals facing their death. All of them were so fragile. One got away. Chen Shang gradually landed on the ground, and with a frown, he looked at the direction Tang Yichao disappeared. Ji Yu Dongchen, Elder Dan and Wu Kaming, the trio all sucked down a mouthful of cold air. This was unprecedented in these 10,000 years. In just one day, so many Nirvana realm martial artists had died, and looking at that calm look of Chen Shang, all 3 of them could not help but secretly be afraid of him. Worthy of that madman's apprentice. This thought suddenly emerged in the heart of the trio. However, when thinking of the mess they had to clean up, they had immediately felt a headache. Hey, Uncle had just saved you before. You guys have seen me and still not going to greet. Chen Shang mischievously laughed. The slaughter chi emanating from his body from before had already vanished like a gust of wind. Greetings, martial uncle. The trio simultaneously saluted, which made Chen Shang nod in satisfaction. Let's quickly get out. I already have the Black Tortoise adamantine armor. Chen Shang proudly said. Before, all of them had totally not expected that Chen Shang would be able to get the Black Tortoise adamantine armor. The trio were once again surprised for a moment, then they suddenly understood why Chen Shang was able to use true chi. From what they heard from their teacher, as long as one was able to get the Black Tortoise adamantine armor, one would be like taking a stroll in his lawn in the Black Tortoise mysterious realm. Young martial uncle, after you go out, you would definitely face no small trouble. In here, you are indeed invincible. However, on the outside, you, in the eyes of these guys, are nothing but an ant. Ji Yu Dongchen said. Chen Shang laughed and said, eldest martial nephew, are you telling me that, after I go out, in your eyes, I'm also an ant? Ji Yu Dongchen angrily glared at him. I'm telling you that after you go out, it would be very troublesome for you. It is better to safely stay here. Elder Dan, Dean is right. It would be best for you to stay here and cultivate till you have reached the Nirvana realm. The spirit chi in here is enough for you reach that level. Chen Shang shook his head and said, if the entrance is closed, then what should I do? Besides, unlike before, the mysterious realm is now without the support of the Black Tortoise adamantine armor. It's difficult to tell how long it will take before this mysterious realm will vanish and transform into spirit chi, then flow in between heaven and earth. You have to protect me. Chen Shang said. Both of his hands were behind his back as he walked in the front. Also there is that, if you're unable to protect me, I'll be thrown in the Forbidden Land, but I yet don't wish to stay with teacher for so many years. I have killed these people for the sake of saving you. Moreover, they had the intention to kill you. Ji Yu Dongchen, Elder Dan and Wu Kaming had an, you look at me and I look at you, stare at Chen Shang. With this kind of stare, they could not help but sigh. They now also had no way to handle this young martial uncle. Before, Chen Shang had indeed saved them, and if Chen Shang had not appeared, they would have probably been killed. Chen Shang picked up the storage ring from those blood and flesh scraps, then he threw it to the trio as he laughed and said, I don't want it, consider it as a reward from me. I know you will have to work hard for quite a while. Inside the storage ring, there were crystal stones and some dans. However, they didn't have anything Chen Shang fancied, and he might as well play generous and reward his own martial nephews and niece. Chapter 178, Betrayal. Chapter 178 Betrayal. Chen Shang followed behind Ji Yu Dongchen's group and ran along the large river. Along the way, the trio also learned that Chen Shang had crippled more than 100 true martial realm disciples, and some of them were even from the extreme martial sect. Despite this, they weren't able to say anything. He even dared to kill the dean of the true martial sect and the beast martial sect. What was crippling a few true martial realm disciples? What is the background of the free immortal sea? It seems they are very formidable. Chen Shang asked. They are very formidable. They were overseas for a very long time. Rumor has it, they have a lot of Nirvana realm martial artists. However, our extreme martial sect has been standing on the apex of the Chenwu mainland for a very long time. We aren't vegetarians. Ji Yu Dongchen replied. The extreme martial sect was truly powerful. Currently, Chen Shang had yet to see its full strength. He knew that there were definitely many martial artists hidden in the extreme martial sect on the same level of Ji Yu Dongchen. Since each generation, not many martial artists from the extreme martial sect were able to ascend to the heavenly realms. In other words, there were a lot of elders from past generations that have been hiding in the extreme martial sect. This was their most frightening and terrifying aspect. This mysterious realm appears to be man-made. After the black tortoise adamantine armor was removed, it started becoming unstable. Elder Dan said, while looking at the spirit chi surging in the sky. Chen Shang nodded his head. That's why we have to quickly leave. If it wasn't for this, Chen Shang would still wish to stay here. Before, when he had arrived here, he had heard a strange beast's roar. He had still not seen that ancient giant beast. That desolate roar filled with vicissitudes of life still had not left his mind. It seems that roar didn't come from this mysterious realm, and was instead transmitted from somewhere else to this mysterious realm. Long Shui said. Her divine sense was relatively stronger, and strangely, she was somehow even more sensitive than Nirvana realm martial artists. Chen Shang asked, what was that demon beast? Long Shui thought for a moment, replied, I too don't know, there's nothing like that in my hereditary memories. Chen Shang followed the trio back through the original way they came from. At this moment, he was thinking about future plans. He just had gotten bunch of spirit herbs, naturally he should first start learning to refine dance and elevate his strength. As for the revenge from the true martial sect and the beast martial sect, it didn't even cross his mind at all. With just a little disguise, no one would even recognize him. As long as he was a little careful, nothing would happen. If they seeked him out, then he would have Ji Yu Dongchen and others block them. If that didn't work, at most, he could have to spend some time with his insane teacher and wait for the rumors to die down. Then, he would once again come out, although those days might be a little bitter. Little alchemistress, didn't you say before, that as long as I defeat you, you'll marry me? Let's have a fight now. Chen Shang suddenly spoke, his face was brimming with a wide smile. Elder Dan's charming body suddenly jolted, she coldly said, it doesn't count in this case. I knew you would lie, but I seem to remember you saying that I can challenge you anywhere. Chen Shang pursed his lips, and contemptuously said. Elder Dan no long spoke, she could only respond with silence. If she and Chen Shang fought here, she would suffer an instant loss. Little featherhead, don't you have any woman? Or are you nestling? Ha ha, Chen Shang laughed. Ji Yu Dongchen was extremely unhappy in his heart, only that insane old man would dare to call him that. However, he could not say anything. Young martial uncle, could you be a little serious? You have to act according to your seniority, you need to keep a positive image. Ji Yu Dongchen said. Chen Shang scratched his ear, once again mischievously laughing and said, you should be aware of the matter between me and Shui Shenxian. She is my wife, when you see her, what are you going to call her? Young martial uncle, your identity is extraordinary. Your identity cannot be revealed, even to your own wife. Elder Dan said in a cold voice. If the matter of Chen Shang getting the Huang Jishan's inheritance was leaked, it would cause no small amount of trouble for the extreme martial sect. Chen Shang stuck his tongue out. With both his hands behind his back, he leisurely continued walking. Soon, they had arrived at the end of the river. Next to the river, there was a huge round entrance exuding white light. This was the entrance of the mysterious realm, which was also known as the edge of the mysterious realm. Stick with us, once we are outside, you will face immense danger. Ji Yu Dongchen seriously said, previously they had taken many dans for recovering their physical strength, they all knew after they went out, inevitably a big battle would occur, and it was most important to protect Chen Shang. After passing through the passage, Chen Shang only saw a land filled with messy stones in front of him. He already knew that after the passage was opened, Black Tortoise Mountain would be destroyed. The flow of time inside the Black Tortoise mysterious realm and outside was different. Chen Shang had almost spent 2 months inside here, however, only 20 days had passed outside. Soon, Chen Shang saw Tang Yichao, the dean of the true martial sect. At this moment, he looked very angry, and was glaring at Chen Shang. Beside him, there were a good number of old men. From all of their bodies, a very powerful true chi breath was emanating. They were all in the Nirvana realm, this made Chen Shang suddenly feel a lot of pressure. Many bystanders escaped far away. They didn't know what had happened inside the mysterious realm, but looking at Chen Shang following behind Ji Yudongshan, they all knew Chen Shang must have done something to once again anger the true martial sect. Tang Yichao would certainly not reveal what had occurred inside. Many people had colluded to bully a few others, and were close to killing them, but instead, Chen Shang had suddenly jumped out, killing the entire enemy group and completely routing them. Tang Yichao was the only one to escape, but this was nothing glorious. He also knew Chen Shang and others would also not reveal this. This is the site of the extreme martial province, I have already said, we do not welcome you, quickly leave. Ji Yudongshan's voice was thunderous like the sound of ringing bells, as he glared at Tang Yichao and others. Wu Kaming waved his hand and called some people, these were all elders from the elder courtyard. They would rarely show up, however, they were all very strong. Protect Chen Shang and leave. Ji Yudongshan said to these elders. Just a moment ago, he had glanced all around them, there were only a few powerful martial artists in front of them who would give them a little challenge. He, Wu Kaming and Elder Dan were enough to deal with them. Under the protection of a good few elders, Chen Shang left that place full of tension. As Ji Yudongshan and other two were here, Tang Yichao's group had no way to leave and chase Chen Shang down. As long as they made a move, a great battle would erupt. Chen Shang had killed two Nirvana realm martial artists of the true martial sect, Tang Yichao could absolutely not just forget it. Chase them, you must definitely kill Chen Shang. Tang Yichao loudly shouted, a few silhouettes jumped out from the faraway forest, and rushed towards Chen Zhang's group. Those few elders seeing this, were shocked in their heart. At that moment, a tall and thin old man took out a square slate. This slate was very large, it was more than enough to carry a good amount of people. You block them, I'll take Chen Shang and escape. That tall thin old man hastily said. He grabbed Chen Shang, and manipulated that square slate, making that slate quickly dart out. This slate flying speed was very fast, Chen Shang reckoned this was definitely a ranked spirit weapon. Unexpectedly it was so effective that in just the blink of an eye, they were very far away from the Black Tortoise Mountain. Elder, this thing is good, how did you come by it? Chen Shang asked, as he glanced at that tall and thin old man. Chen Shang didn't know this elder, however, he knew the majority of the elders in the extreme martial sect were good and were all very powerful. It was a gift, that tall thin old man laughed. At this time, Chen Shang looked at his surroundings, with a frown he said, this does not seem to be the way to the extreme martial sect. Just as finished speaking, that tall thin old man blasted a palm at Chen Zhang's dantian. A powerful palm fiercely bombarded on Chen Zhang's dantian, glutting his limbs and numerous bones. He became unable to move from pain, it seemed as if his 5 zhong and 6 fu were breaking apart. With a horrified complexion he turned to look at that tall thin old man. Blood overflowed from Chen Zhang's mouth, and during his pain he asked, why? Chapter 179, The Netherworld Abyss. Chen Zhang's wrist had already been deadly clutched by that tall and thin old man. Chen Shang was seriously injured, so he was unable to mobilize his true qi, his body was suffering from serious trauma. On that flying magic equipment, he had no way to cast the water escape and escape. Brat, if you don't want to die, then quickly pay out all the good things you have. I at most will just cripple you, I don't wish to kill you. That tall and thin man said with a happy smile and a sinister expression on his face. Chen Shang had not expected that the elder of the extreme martial sect to actually use such ruthless means against him. It must be known that this elder had acquired the trust of Ji Yudongshan and others, and that was also the reason why Chen Shang was totally unprepared and was successfully attacked. This elder was also very powerful, with just a smack of his palm, he had almost lost his life. The flying spirit equipment of this tall thin old man was very fast, and they have arrived at the place where just talking about it would make people lose their countenance. They were now floating directly above 1,000 zhong wide, infinitely extending, deep and bottomless canyon. This was a very well-known location very close to the Black Tortoise Mountain, known as the Netherworld Abyss. Nobody knew what was at the bottom, it also had the divided line from the true martial sect. It was said that Huang Jishan had once went down, however, he came out after some 10 days, because he was not able to endure the yin qi at the bottom. After he came out, he spent a very long time to heal his injuries, it was perfectly evident how frightening below was. Brat, if you do not give me I'll throw you down. That tall and thin old man vigorously clutching Chen Zhang's wrist, once again smacked a palm at Chen Shang. Are you not afraid if the extreme martial sect came to know? If I gave them to you, you would most likely kill me to silence me, right? Chen Shang spat and coldly said. He now had nowhere to run, they were now floating in the middle of that canyon and unable to fly, the only way for him to escape was to jump down. Ha ha, since you are like this, I'll let you know before you die, my surname is Liu. Now you know why, this is what you brought upon yourself. That tall and thin old man madly laughed and subsequently smacked palms at Chen Zhang's abdomen, blasting him away. Chen Shang didn't utter a cry, with pair of resentful eyes, he just looked at that tall thin old man, he was unable to move and quickly fell into that abyss. He only heard the mad laughter of that tall and thin old man coming from above. 10,000 years ago, Qinwu mainland's strongest martial artist didn't have any way to withstand this place, others certainly didn't have even more chance to survive here. This was also a good place to murder someone mysteriously, if killed somewhere else, his soul would be released into the atmosphere, and it would be possible to summon the soul using some spirit runes. At that time, he would be discovered and certainly be killed, however, nothing could be done here near this netherworld abyss, after he had died directly below. Early on, when Chen Shang had left the extreme martial sect, this Elder Lu had sent people to assassinate Chen Shang. Chen Shang had not expected that Elder Lu could actually be regarded highly by Jiyu Dongchen and the other two. Otherwise, he would not be harmed even the slightest and would have not been plotted against. Only after seeing Chen Zhang's figure disappear in that endless huge abyss did Elder Lu flew away. After Chen Shang fell below, he only felt freezing cold, and at this time, an aura flashed from his arm, a fair and clear girl appeared. Long Shui directly tugged his arm, she was having difficulty pulling him, this is somewhat annoying, the suction force from below is too great. Chen Shang was unable to move any part of his body, he already knew that the little greedy dragoness would save him, so he smiled and said, you just pull me like this, just don't let me fall and smash on the ground. In Chen Zhang's hand, a hell spirit grass suddenly appeared, Long Shui took it from his hand and looked at it while licking her lips. She could not wait to take a bite, she very much wanted to try the flavor of this hell spirit grass, however, she knew that she had to feed it to Chen Shang so that he could be healed. Only after licking it with her tongue did she stuff it into Chen Zhang's mouth, and with a look of envy, she gazed at Chen Shang as he started chewing that hell spirit grass. Long Shui fiercely swallowed her saliva, licked her small lips and asked, is it tasty? Chen Shang laughed, little girl, as long as I'm not dead, if I have the opportunity, you will be able to eat more tasty things. Don't forget I have the dragon saliva exercise. I know, it just that I cannot bear it. Long Shui pulled Chen Zhang's arm and the speed of their descent gradually decreased, if not for that great suction force from below, even 10 Chen Zhangs would not be a problem. If she had appeared earlier, Elder Lu would have seen her, and Long Shui would also be attacked. Although she was a dragon, she was still too young, and she simply cannot deal with that Elder Lu, that was why she could only wait for Elder Lu to leave, and only then did she dare to come out. In fact, by relying on her strength, she could just walk away and totally ignore Chen Shang. However, she still decided to stay, pulling Chen Shang, making his fall slow down. Chen Shang was quite moved by this. Below, there was indeed a dense yin qi, waves of cold qi struck at him one after another, making Chen Shang howl and tremble. Sister Mei Yao, Sister Yu Yu, have you heard about this place? Chen Shang asked. I have heard about it, it is a very frightening place, I just know a little about it, that's all. Su Mei Yao replied, her voice was full of worry. Bai Yu Yu replied, I once thought that this place was very good for my cultivation, I came here for some time, however, in the end, I was also not able to endure. Chen Shang only felt that the yin qi was getting heavier and heavier as he descended, if it continued like this, he would certainly die. His mother's pussy, father have yin and yang divine vein, it's just a little yin qi, how can I not endure? Chen Shang proudly said. He quickly operated the Tai Chi subduing dragon exercise, absorbing those yin qi which had seeped into his body. At the beginning he really was not able to absorb the yin qi, he could only convert it to true qi, and then once again, through the Tai Chi subduing dragon exercise he had refined it into 5 elements true qi. He was only able to do this at the beginning, however, after a little more than 2 hours passed, he suddenly discovered he was absorbing the yin qi more and more, and his refining speed was having a very hard time to keep up with it. Without any choice left, he had to exercise these yin qi out of his body. The yin qi was getting denser and denser as he kept on descending. Chen Shang had finally understood why so many people after going down weren't able to endure. the yin qi below, in a steady stream, was constantly gushing like it was coming from the underworld. Chen Zhang's complexion was getting paler and paler, his whole body was shivering from coldness. In the end, even his teacher, Huang Jishan, wasn't able to stay here, he himself didn't have the confidence to do so, and now he could not also go up, he could only depend on Long Shui's strength to gradually descend. Long Shui from the start had been cultivating Shinto. For her, these yin qi didn't have any effect whatsoever, but as of this moment, Chen Shang was also secretly worried that down below, there might be some danger she would not be able to cope. Right, don't you have the black tortoise adamantine armor? Try to see whether or not it could block the yin qi. Su Meiyao suddenly spoke. Listening to her, Chen Zhang's mind suddenly jolted. With a thought, a golden light flashed, and an armor suddenly appeared on his body, wrapping him whole. Although his head was still exposed, Chen Shang, at this time, most of the yin qi that was permeating into his body was blocked, making him feel a lot better. The yin qi coming was still a lot, however, this yin qi was accompanied by a large amount of yin spirit qi, and by virtue of the Tai Chi subduing dragon exercise he was able to refine it. He was able to convert it into pure true qi, and once again, by the help of the 5 elements beast forms, he was able to convert it into 5 elements true qi and store it in his dantian. During his fall, Chen Shang was healing, and at the same time, he was cultivating. He originally had yin and yang divine vein, and by their virtue, he was able to absorb a large amount of spirit qi within these yin qi, quickly refining it afterwards. Unknowingly, inside the azure dragon beast form in his dantian, a true element grain was once again illuminated, and a total of 4 grains in the azure dragon beast form had already been illuminated. Once he had illuminated 10 grains, he could start cultivating other beast forms. These 5 divine beast forms had a total of 50 dimly lit true element grains, so he could only enter the 2nd level of the true martial realm. However, at this time, he could still have an even more vigorous true qi. Long Shui was pulling Chen Shang, making him descend slowly. Although it seems very laborious, she was very leisurely eating dans and some fruits. When she decided to follow Chen Shang, they had established a contract, and also for this very reason, she fancied Chen Shang. She also knew that a martial artist cultivating the Tai Chi subduing dragon exercise would definitely have a promising future. Chapter 180. The Mysterious Beast Roar. Lu Shang, is it true? He fell into the netherworld abyss. Ji Yu Dongchen's complexion turned ashen, Elder Dan's and Wu Kaiming's whole body quivered. I'll go and take a look, maybe. Elder Dan just turned around, however, she had been stopped by Ji Yu Dongchen. Don't go, we can only depend on his good luck. Ji Yu Dongchen heaved a long sigh, his face fully covered in sadness. Wu Kaiming looked at the blue sky and sighed in emotion. Although Chen Shang had encountered a lot of trouble, he was still able to kill a few Nirvana realm martial artists. However, he did so in order to save them. Besides, he had also obtained the Black Tortoise Adamantine armor, completing the long-standing mission of the extreme martial sect. Not to mention that he was also their martial uncle. However, now he had encountered such a crisis, which made all 3 of them very sad. I was entangled with a few black-robed people. These black-robed people were very strong, so I was not able to pay attention to Chen Shang. He at least pulled 2 black-robed men with him together and fell down. Lu Shang lamented. He was precisely that elder Lu, a highly respected person from the Lu family of the Herb King Mountain. At this moment, he was secretly shocked. He could see Chen Shang was very important in the eyes for these 3 tycoons. In particular was Elder Dan. Usually, a lot of people would think that Elder Dan hated Chen Shang to death. However, Elder Dan's mood was very low now, and from her voice, it was evidently clear. Not to mention Chen Shang with his level of strength. Even if it was them, after these Nirvana realm martial artists fell into that netherworld abyss, it would be very difficult to survive, unless they came out without any delay. If Chen Shang quickly recovered from his injury and immediately used his vermilion bird fire wings to fly out, perhaps he may be able to come out. However, now that he had already fallen very deeply, the suction force was already very big. Even if he used the vermilion bird fire wing, it would still be difficult to fly up because he was being sucked down little by little. The Black Tortoise mysterious realm had slowly dissipated, and the spirit chi flowed towards the whole extreme martial province, making the spirit chi of the extreme martial province become even more abundant. At this moment, the extreme martial sect also sent some people at the border of the extreme martial province to take charge, lest other sects' people to came over. The true martial sect and beast martial sect suffered heavy losses, not to mention the deaths of a bunch of true martial realm disciples. Most importantly, Nirvana realm martial artists and a dean had died in the Black Tortoise mysterious realm, only a few knew about this truth. The dean of the true martial sect, Tang Yichao, only told the beast martial sect that their dean died in battle. This made the beast martial sect even more hostile towards the extreme martial sect. This caused quite an uproar. 10,000 years ago, the extreme martial sect had killed the dean of the beast martial sect, and after 10,000 years, the same feat had been done once again. However, many people felt that this was what the beast martial sect brought upon themselves. They ran to other people's site and tried to snatch their guarded treasure. It would be even more stranger if they were not killed. Right now, the beast martial sect and the true martial sect only dared to clamor on the surface, nothing more. They practically didn't take any action. Because they had suffered greatly, even if they allied together, it would be extremely difficult to even shake the extreme martial sect. Among the martial arts sects of the Chenwu mainland, the extreme martial sect had the longest history. Many martial artists of the Chenwu mainland originated from there, and many sects' martial arts came from the extreme martial sect's vein. Throughout the Chenwu mainland, ancestors of many martial arts aristocratic families had some kind of relations with the extreme martial sect. Such status could not be compared with other late-formed sects. Originally, the extreme martial sect just wanted to spread martial arts. However, after the rise of many sects, many ambitious sects were also born. They always wanted to plunder the most important resources and always wanted to oppress and exploit the citizens. That was why, without any choices, the Chenwu mainland was separated into 9 provinces, under the control of many forces. Otherwise, it would have not been long before all of them would have started fighting. However, the sudden appearance of the free Immortal Sea brought a headache to Ji Yudongchen's group. Only teacher, that insane guy, dared to stay here for so long. As long as I can leave this place, even in death, I will never come back to this place. Chen Shang, at this moment, was covered in endless darkness. His aura was overshadowed by black yin qi, but Long Shui's, this little dragoness, whole body was exuding a white light. It appeared to be very holy and beautiful. She was only a little bit older, yet she was already such a beauty. If she had grown up, how stunning would she be? When will we arrive at the bottom? Chen Shang had a helpless look. At this moment, he can't go up, so he could only take a look below and find some way to leave this damned place. Fortunately, he had acquired the Black Tortoise Adamental armor before, otherwise, he would have already died. Long Shui replied, if you could survive your descent, only you can answer this question. I have helped you in getting the Black Tortoise Adamental armor, so you have to remember your promise to me and give me true elemental Dan. Of course Chen Shang remembered it. He had no shortage of the true elemental Dan. He had also acquired a lot of herbs in the Black Tortoise mysterious realm. Give him enough time, and he would be able to convert those herbs into dans. In order to quickly reach the bottom, Chen Shang made Long Shui release him. Once he had arrived at the bottom, she would once again pull him back. Chen Shang was certain that this netherworld abyss had a bottom. It was just that the yin qi was too dense, and none was able to go down. However, he happened to have the Black Tortoise Adamental armor, and by its virtue, he was able to survive in such a deep place. Falling so quickly, the rich yin qi was striking on his face. It was very chilly, making Chen Shang very excited. When Chen Shang was gradually descending, he had already recovered a better part of his injuries, and he had simultaneously elevated his cultivation, making himself achieve the peak state, the reason why he dared to try. Half a day passed. Chen Shang suddenly saw that below him was slightly illuminated. This lifted Chen Zhang's spirit. He hastily made Long Shui come out from his arm and pull him. Have we arrived at the bottom? Chen Shang looked below at those weak and fuzzy aura and said, little dragoness, did you sense something? Long Shui closed those cute eyes of her, and after a moment passed by, with a delighted look on her face, she said, we have arrived, and there is also a very strong life aura below. There is actually a world down there. Chen Shang, Su Meiyao and Bai Yuyu were immediately shocked. In this kind of place, there was actually a living thing. In this ghastly place, they reckoned that this life definitely had the power to resist this intense yin qi, otherwise, none could ever survive down here. While Chen Zhang's group was still caught in surprise, an intimidating beast roar suddenly exploded in Chen Zhang's ears. It was just like thunder, and when Chen Zhang's group heard it, they were once again surprised, because this roar was exactly the same as they had heard before in the Black Tortoise mysterious realm. It was desolate and filled with the vicissitudes of life, influencing Chen Zhang's group. They had never expected that a giant beast would be in this netherworld abyss. Did it accidentally fell down and got trapped down here? Chen Shang said, this demon beast was able to resist the yin qi. If it was not very strong, then it was exactly because it inherently possessed very tough defensive skills. Splash! Chen Shang fell into the water, a freezing coldness suddenly penetrated down to his bone marrow. If not for the black tortoise adamantine armor covering his body, he would have definitely been frozen to death. You clearly knew there was water down below and you still dropped me. Chen Shang cursed in a low voice. He jumped and a pair of vermilion bird fire wings appeared on his back. However, the flames were quickly being eroded by the yin qi down here. Long Shui skimmed her mouth and said, nevertheless, let me pull you now. She once again pulled Chen Zhang's arm and brought him to the shore. Surprisingly, there was a river below in this abyss, but there were also many green mists suspending above, exuding light, giving a little illumination to this abyss. Just as he climbed onto the shore, that beast roar came again, slight waves appeared on the water due to shock. Chapter 181, Ancient Fire Beast.